for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening, Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah. How you doing? Today's Wednesday, October 13th, 2021. 285 days into the new year, only 80 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of nowhere. A total undisclosed location, but it is beautiful. It is. It truly is. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network. And UnX, the UnX Network, kicking things off October 31st, Raise Hobbs. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? What a great week on the show. And tonight, very special guest, Isaac Arthur. Right here. Isaac Arthur is back with us to discuss the physics of a Tic Tac. Yeah, man. And tomorrow night's another Fader night with open lines all night long. And then I'm going to give everybody an update. I'm going to have a couple hours of sleep, and then I jump on a plane. I'm headed out of town. Secret mission. I'll be back Sunday night, but yeah, I wish I could tell you more, but I can't. But that's what I got to do. Man. Wrap the show. 10 o'clock. Grab a little bite, some food. Head to bed for a couple hours. Got to get up bright and early. Head straight to the airport. And there you go. Love it, though. Love it. Trying to slow down time with doing lots of things. Yeah, man. All right. Oh, where am I at right now? So excited. Isaac Arthur is with us. I'm going to talk more about Isaac in just a bit. But Isaac Arthur is here. And this is the thing. I can't wait until Isaac gets on the show. Normally I do a sound check. Sound check happens every single night at 6:30. I have missed maybe a dozen or so sound checks over the years. We've, put a lot of shows into the can. And for whatever reason, sound check doesn't happen. Tonight, it didn't happen with Isaac. And I'm waiting. I've got texts going on. I know what Isaac is doing. He's taking a nap. And he's going to get up. He's going to brew some coffee. He's going to sit down. He's going to be ready to go. But I won't know anything until 7:30. And right now I'm looking and I've got no return text. It's always a nerve-wracking thing. And there's a few guys that have done David Icke, no sound checks ever. He's over in England. That's one example. Think of all those shows with David Icke, and it's just 1 minute before showtime, I'll get a text. Okay, man, I'm ready to go. But anyway, Grant Cameron, same thing. Over the years, Grant, nope, no sound checks. It's just a minute before showtime, I'll get a text, okay, man, ready to go. And I can go, phew. But I don't know what the audio's like. That's why you do sound checks. Isaac, total professional. He's got his show, Science and Futurism. And he's got a nice studio, and he's dialed up and ready to go. But no sound check tonight with Isaac. So there you go. Okay. All right. So I'm waiting. I've got... that's right. I'm waiting. This is the best birthday gift. I mean, all of my birthday gifts were great this year, but this one, that one's personal. Okay, so phone is right here. I've got this really cool phone stand. This is what it looks like, and it just sits right here, staring at me in the face. Right here. Okay, so let's wait for Isaac. I will be at the Starworks USA UFOs All the Above and Beyond Conference this November 12th through the 14th in Laughlin, Nevada at the absolutely fabulous Aquarius Hotel and Casino. And that is kicking off, like I said, November 12th through the 14th. And Jacques Vallée, Paul Hynek, who was on the show with us last night, Grant Cameron, Colin Andrews, Jaime Maussan, and 10 other amazing speakers. Tickets and info at starworksusa.com. And the links are everywhere for us throughout social media. You can go and click, but starworksusa.com. Also, the link is in the video description box below. Head over, get your tickets and info. And Friday night, we will be doing Fade to Black Live on stage. I got a few ideas for this, too. It's going to be really, really cool. So, tickets and info, starworksusa.com. All right, head over, get that. Follow me on Twitter at jchurchradio. River Moon Coffee. Oh, man. rivermoonwellness.com. Yeah. Follow me on Twitter at jchurchradio. The Sandbox is hashtag F2B on Twitter. And chat rooms are open, of course, over at Spreaker and over on YouTube as well. And Facebook. Hello to everybody that's out there. Whether you're listening or you're watching, whatever you're doing. How you guys? What's going on? All right. Let's see what is cracking. I'm very excited about UNX and the UNX Network. And you can go to unxnetwork.com. The site is active. It will be updated and flying here with all of the exciting new programming that is going to be over at the UNX Network. Am I writing low on YouTube? Am I writing low? It looks like I'm low. Let me see. Is that better? Let me see. I'm going to see. Is it my chair? What is going on? I'm like, what's up? What's up, Fade to Black? What's up? Fade to Black. So, let's see. I've just raised that up. I love it. Let's get to the breaking news. William Shatner can now say he's gone boldly where no man his age has gone before. He's certainly not the first person to visit space, but as of today, the Star Trek captain is the oldest. At 90 years old, the actor joined Blue Origin, founded by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos in 2000 for its second human space flight. That's right. Bill and 3 others were launched in a New Shepard rocket from the aerospace company's West Texas launch site just before 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And a couple of delays, right? Can you imagine sitting on a rocket like that and getting one delay after another, right? But everything was cool. The crew safely landed back on Earth 11 minutes later when Shatner could be heard saying the experience was unlike anything they described. All 4 passengers on board gave a thumbs up to the recovery crew upon landing to indicate that they were okay. And then Bezos shows up, gave everybody their wings. You get those Bezos wings when you land. I would love to do that. I mean, it's way out of my tax bracket. But, okay, Isaac is good to go. All right. Hold on for a second. Let me text him back. Be ready to go. I'm on the air right now, and everybody can hear me texting you. Ha, ha, ha. Isaac Arthur. See, I told you. Didn't I tell you? Watch. Oh, man. Okay. Where am I at? A Canadian woman narrowly avoided disaster when a meteorite crashed through her roof and landed on the pillow next to her as she slept. The photographs, the images of what happened and the size of this meteorite are absolutely nuts. Thing is this big. Ruth Hamilton of Golden, British Columbia, woke up to the sound of a crash and dust on her face Sunday, October 3rd at 11:50 p.m. When she looked down, she saw a rock on her pillow right next to where her head usually lies. Her insurance company plans to conduct a walkthrough and determine whether burning space matter is covered under her policy. I'm not making that up. The company said they've never handled a claim like this before. The images are absolutely crazy. Let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to today, the one and only Sacha Baron Cohen. Today, 49 years old. Now, I'm going to say this. Yeah, Borat, Ali G. I'm not even sure. I'm more of an Ali G guy. But Madagascar, Julian, right? Stole the show. Happy birthday, Sasha. Paul Simon today is 79, Kodachrome. I'm just going there. Kodachrome. Marie Osmond today is 61. And I didn't realize that she was 3 years older than me, because when I go back to the Osmond Brothers show, right, and they brought her out on stage, I thought we were like the same age, like 2. But she's 61 today. Chicago's Robert Lamb, the one and only, is 77 years old. Anthrax frontman Joey Belladonna today is 61. Saving the best for last, though. Sammy Hagar today is 74. He ain't slowing down. David Lee Roth just announced his retirement. He's hanging up his shoes, and I was kind of surprised about that. But not Sammy. Sammy is 74. Our dead guy's birthday today is Kelly Preston. 1962 to 2020, died at the age of 77. Surprised and shocked all of us. With her passing, Kelly was an actress, of course, and a model. She appeared in more than 60 television and film productions, including Mischief, Twins, Jerry Maguire, For the Love of the Game, Gotti, Space Camp, The Cat in the Hat, What a Girl Wants, Sky High. She was great in Sky High. And Old Dogs. And she married John Travolta back in 1991. On July 12th, 2020, Kelly died at the age of 57 at her home in Clearwater, Florida, 2 years after she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. Happy birthday, Kelly Preston. On this day in history, oh yeah, here it is. I got it. 4 Palestinians hijacked a Lufthansa airliner and took the plane on a 6-country odyssey, eventually landing in Mogadishu, Somalia, on October 17th, like 4 days later, right? Okay. Early the next morning, this is why you don't hijack a plane, especially Lufthansa, because early the next morning, a German special forces team stormed the aircraft, releasing the 86 hostages and killing 3 of the 4 hijackers on this day in 1977. Here's your fader fact. This one's about Roy Orbison. I can't drive 55. Right on tri-scale. Roy Orbison wrote the biggest hit of his career after asking his first wife, Claudette, if she needed cash for the market. His writing partner interjected saying, "Pretty women don't need money." As Orbison watched Claudette go to the market by walking down the street, he wrote, "Oh, pretty woman." And that is your fader fact. Tonight, very special guest Isaac Arthur is here. We're going to be discussing the physics of a Tic Tac. Yeah. Tomorrow night is another fader night with open lines all night long. All right. Let me hit this River Moon coffee. I'm in a great mood. Great week. I got an amazing weekend coming up. I can't tell you where I'm going, though. I can't. Jet airliner, though. Steve Miller. By the time I get to Phoenix. No, it's not that kind of flight, though. It's not that kind of flight. Great song. Great song. Well, all right. All right. Isaac is amazing. He's amazing. Funny dude. Funny dude. All right. Where am I? Yes, Kaz. That's the picture of her ceiling. And then look at that rock. Can you imagine that? Flaming hot coming through the roof, landing on the pillow next to you. That's crazy. Thank you for that, Kaz. Kaz is definitely trying to get promoted. At the end of the show last night, I got a call from Todd. And my blue heaven, Todd. And got a call from Todd. Todd is studying cosmology. And it's kind of funny because Todd is probably listening right now, and we have Isaac Arthur on the show tonight. And last night, that conversation was a great one. And I understand all of his points that he made. And, basically about life in our galaxy, or the lack of, and the universe. And, tonight's guest, Isaac Arthur, has covered all of this many, many times on his podcast and video series, Science and Futurism with Isaac Arthur. And Isaac's Great Filters series on the Fermi paradox is something that I've listened to and watched dozens of times. And the whole thing is probably weeks long, his Fermi paradox and Great Filters series. It's amazing research, and I highly recommend it to anyone who is interested in the subject. And when I say I've listened to it dozens of times, go to Isaac's website or his YouTube channel, Science and Futurism with Isaac Arthur, and go to the video series, and there's a playlist there. And I am sure there is a Fermi Paradox Great Filters section, and go look at all of those videos. Look at the length of some of those videos and how many are there in that series. And I'm not joking when I say it's probably weeks long. And when I say I've listened to it and watched it dozens of times, I have. In fact, I've stolen so much of my amazing material from Isaac over the years. I admit it. I clearly admit it, but it makes me appear to be a pretty smart guy. But go and check it out. And if you listen to the phone call and the conversation last night I had with Todd, and then you go and check out Isaac's series, the presentation there by Isaac is something that is shared. That viewpoints, I should say, are shared by many scientists and cosmologists and astrophysicists out there around the world. And I get it. I really do, including Fermi himself. So, that being said, I agree with almost none of it. The answer is none. But that isn't the point. You see, I've learned so much from Isaac. And the point is that it gives me so much to think about. And it's kind of like this. When you listen to somebody as intelligent as Isaac and presenting the great filters and the Fermi paradox and jumping into the Drake equation and the size and scope of not only our Milky Way, but the universe and what is going on out there, it is so much data and it's so much information, but it makes me think. Just makes me think. And over, I've listened to these shows and tried to absorb all of it. Now, Isaac jumps into the colonization of the universe and of galaxies and multiple star systems and how extraterrestrial civilizations would do that. And he gets into energy sources and heavy math and equations and the time scale of how this stuff could be achieved. Okay, and what types of ships and how you would do this. Okay, so there's all of that data, which brings me to a deck of cards. That's right. I've used this analogy many times on the show, but it needs to be repeated from time to time to keep everybody on their toes. And so back to the deck of cards. Listen, there are only so many elements, particles, atoms, gases, chemicals in the universe. There's only so many. It's a fixed amount. It's not infinite. It's not. There's only so many ways that particles can combine. It's not infinite. Okay? And carbon here on Earth is carbon on the other side of the universe. And that goes with absolutely everything else you can think of. That's it. There's no other way to look at it. Now, back to the deck of cards. When you look at things this way, you have a deck of cards, you've got some friends sitting around a poker table, you shuffle the deck, deal out 5 cards each, take a look at your cards, boom, done. Next hand, shuffle the deck. Eventually, deal out those cards. Eventually, you are going to shuffle the deck exactly the same, and you are going to deal out the exact hand to all of your partners. They're going to look at their cards, and eventually that is going to happen. It may take a while. It may take a couple of hands. It could happen. But eventually, it will be exactly the same. It's no different with particles. It's just not any different. That goes with me. Eventually, particles are going to combine out there in the universe and make an identical paper cup. It's a numbers game. Eventually, there will be an identical Earth. Identical. That's just the way that it is. Now, highly probable? Well, it's inevitable. And it's already happened. That's it. Now, that's for repeated versions of me and of you and of this planet. An identical Earth is out there somewhere. But those same particles are going to combine into life a lot. That's it. It's going to repeat and repeat and repeat. What kind of life? Don't know. What kind of gravity on that planet? Don't know. Carbon-based? Don't know. I don't know. But life is repeating out there all over the place. Well, why haven't we seen it? I don't know. There's lots of reasons. But you cannot, and I will go back to any astrophysicist and say, when somebody says, you know what, man, life is very rare. Prove it. Prove it. You cannot prove that there is no life out there any more than I can say there is life out there, except this is what tips the scales. Life is everywhere. You can't stop it. Chemicals are chemicals. They are going to combine in only limited amounts of versions of everything. That's it. And there has to be life out there. You cannot prove to me that particles are stopping their combinations, and that's it. There's nothing else out there, that we are unique, and that is it. No. The argument is the opposite. I have in my arsenal, the bullets in my gun say that the chemistry here on this planet is the same chemistry everywhere in the universe. And you cannot tell me that life doesn't exist all over the place. That's it. That's it. You cannot prove to me that particles and physics and things cease to exist everywhere else. No. And that's the end of the argument. It's the deck of cards. That deck of cards, it will eventually repeat. And with the size and the vastness of everything out there, it's repeated a lot. It's a numbers game. There is a lot of life out there. I'll be discussing all of this tonight with Isaac Arthur as we jump into the physics of a Tic Tac. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight is Isaac Arthur, host of Science and Futurism with Isaac Arthur. His website, isaacarthur.net, is right there at jimmychurchradio.com. Go and check it out. It's an amazing site. And he's got one of the greatest YouTube channels in all of YouTube. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network, KJCR, and UnX Network. As of October 31st. That's the big party. I'll be right back with our guest, Isaac Arthur, right after this short break. Stay with me.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on jimmychurchradio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net.
Introducing the Game Changer blend from River Moon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate, with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all River Moon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2B Blend for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? What a great week on the show. And tonight, very special guest, Isaac Arthur, is with us. And tomorrow night's another Fader night with open lines all night long. So get ready for that. But tonight, it's Isaac, and he's back. We're going to be talking about the physics of a Tic Tac and what may or may not be visiting our planet and hanging out with the United States Navy. Isaac is the host of Science and Futurism with Isaac Arthur on YouTube with over 650,000 subscribers, covering topics like colonizing the solar system, interstellar travel, the Fermi paradox, artificial intelligence, and other topics representing possible future paths and challenges for humanity. Isaac received his degree in physics from Kent State University, graduating top of his class at the age of 20. What have you done with your life lately? That's right. And he remained there for graduate studies before joining the U.S. Army, serving in Iraq. He also worked as a civilian researcher at the Air Force Institute of Technology in Dayton, Ohio, which means Isaac knows things. His website is isaacarthur.net, and I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Isaac Arthur. Isaac, man, good evening. How are you?
Doing great, Jimmy. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, it's so great. Not only do I love to hear your voice and to see you too as well, but you gave me a shout out last year on your show, and I'm going to say, man, Twitter lit up, and it was so great that the Fadernauts are dialed in to Isaac, but it was so cool for people. Man, Isaac gave you a shout out today. And I got the timestamps, and I went back and watched it, man. And I was honored. That was very cool. So thank you so much. 650,000. It's actually far north of that now. But I keep saying this to you, Isaac. I remember when. Right. and reaching out to you back then and watching the growth of your channel and how many people are excited about science, physics, the universe, our galaxy, and what is going on out there. That is very impressive, man. And congratulations on that.
Well, thanks. We just hit our 7th anniversary, and I'm still loving it as much as the first day we started doing it.
And you know what? Back in the day, one of your first series that you had done was the Great Filters and the Fermi Paradox, which if you as a listener, if you start with the top of the list and work your way down, that's probably going to take you a month, right, to listen to. It's a lot of material there. And I listened to it over and over again. I can't tell you how much information I stole from that. That was a lot of work.
It was, the funny thing about the Fermi Paradox is I really thought that was just going to be one of those episodes we touched on one time and never revisited because it seemed like we went through all the solutions and none of the solutions actually work perfectly fine. All of them's got a little bit of a flaw in it. I thought, here's the evidence. Take it, judge it for yourself. Let's move on to the space conversation topics. And yet it ended up becoming one of our most popular topics because there's always so much more to explore. It's just it's one of those questions you could probably spend twice as much time as I've done on it and still barely scratch the surface of the options.
Yeah.
But
I mean, when you look at the Great Filters, which you can break down, and you have into 3, 4, 5, 6 categories, and then break that down underneath. The next thing you know, you're approaching 100 filters, and each one of those filters is a show, right? and you can continue off of each filter. It's like the gift that keeps on giving, right?
So that is true. Yeah, we once did a list of 50 known ones, just to use 50 as a round number of potential suggested filters, and we probably could get away with doing an episode on almost every single one of them. Some of them we could get away with doing more than one on. We've only done some of the major categories that some of them fall into. So, you could spend an entire hour just looking at the importance of whether or not you evolved a parenting skill with potential civilization, because would something like a lone wolf civilization ever actually develop a civilization? And there's, or like quasars. Well, all of these are so many topics in themselves you can look at. And sadly, we don't actually have much of a clue as to which ones might be factors in a big way because we have so little data.
And you can say that, but the data that is presented and the way that you do it, that's a lot of research. But this is the thing. All of it just made me angry. And what I mean by that is, for somebody in my position, where I go through the Fermi paradox, just in the, there's all this stuff out there. So where are they? That right there just makes me angry. And you take your research and others, and you look at it, and it gives me stuff to think about. It gives me the counter argument. You're always going to have the prosecution and the defense, right? And that's what you give me, is you have given me the tools to come back out and give my side of the story. For that, I thank you, man. And your research is absolutely humbling, Isaac.
Well, you're very welcome and very flattering to say that. Thank you, Jimmy. But I think it is one of those key things to remember is I think we tend to break things in. There's the skeptics category and the believers category, and that's not really the right way to look at it. There's a whole bunch of different subcategories, even on the nominally skeptical side. Seems there's a difference of reasons why it might be the case with witnesses. But the idea is that everyone's trying to aim to get the truth. And I think most folks agree that one way or another, we don't actually have that yet. There's an incomplete picture. Whichever side turns out to have the right data on this, the right theory, it's probably not going to be quite right on the nose. And there's just always going to be little holes here and there that we need to patch up, and we have to keep working at it. Whether it turns out that we're the only thing out there, or whether it turns out they land here every week and we're just completely blinding ourselves to it as a civilization, we don't know for sure yet, and we haven't got something that completely satisfies the answer. We don't know why would they be not just coming out and saying hello. We have some theories why they might land here every day and say hello to some folks, not to everybody else, but we don't know for sure yet.
Well, what do we do, with somebody like you in your position, and your channel is absolutely amazing, and it is fantastic, and it is great, but, right, you fall somewhere on this. And I would say that you are strongly seated in a skeptic seat, and which is fine, and we need that. But now you have all of this coming out in popular culture. It's all over TV. UFOs, UAPs. You've got the Senate Intelligence Committee. You've got the UAP task force. You got the Department of Defense. You've got pilots coming forward. You've got witness testimony. You've got videos. This is a subject now that is out in front. And for somebody like you, you've never had that data available to you. What are you thinking now as all of this is a subject of conversation virtually worldwide?
I have to admit, it hasn't had as much effect on me as people tend to think. And I tend to be on the extreme skeptic side. Most scientists think that there are other alien civilizations in this galaxy. I tend to think they're already within like several thousand galaxies of here. So I'm skeptical even by skeptic standards as to locations and quantities. But to me, I would say, based on behavior, people say, well, why would aliens ever come visit our boring little planet? That's never sounded right to me in the first place. Either they're not out there, or if they are out there, they visit. If they can get here, they're going to visit, right? Whether their intent is hostile, friendly, whatever it is, they're visiting. So those are your two solid camps, right? But I would thought there was a lot of evidence of potential visitations before all this. You know, we've got better data, better evidence saying it right now, but we had eyewitness accounts for 50, 60 years minimum. You know, we had not so many photographs, but nobody had cameras on them all the time like they do now. So there's more evidence, but I'm not sure that it even could be said to be conclusive evidence. We're going to get to the Tic Tac, I imagine, at some point, and we don't know what that is. I mean, we do not know what that was. If it makes the characteristics we think it does, then it's something that nobody on this planet could have made, at least not without having such an advantage. Like, let's say it was a Russian or China thing, right? Then they have such an advantage that they could kick everybody else's butt. Right. So we don't know what that was. Might be natural phenomena. Might be an alien visitor. You know.
And what do you make of Avi Loeb and his excellent book Extraterrestrial, which lays out a pretty convincing argument, Isaac?
He is a smart man. He's a genius in this area. I disagree with him entirely on the interpretation of Oumuamua as a artificial object. To me, it was just a abnormally strange shaped asteroid. There are tons of them. They all look weird. They don't have gravity holding them together. And it was just our first chance to see one that came from outside of the solar system. We probably had thousands pass through here in the last few years. This one we lucked out and got to see. But it doesn't really match what I would say is we'd expect of an artificial artifact. And I say, what's the evidence on something like that? You say, it's not that it looks weird. We expect something else that comes along with it. Like, it looks like it's this shape. Well, is there a signal? Okay, if there's not a signal, is it going faster than we'd expect anything artificial to do? If it's not, then we say, well, maybe it's not. Maybe they're trying to hide it as something that we think was natural. Why not be a little bit less obvious with it, not put it on a trajectory we'd ever notice? We saw things because we lucked out when it came close to the sun. So I have nothing but respect for the guy. I think he's wrong on this, and that's a critical thing. He can be wrong on it. I don't like when people start calling him fringe or anything like that. That's not the fairest thing at all to say to him. Right? He is an expert at his field, but I disagree with him on that particular bit.
Well, one of the things that he points out in Extraterrestrial is that the artist's interpretation of Oumuamua was wrong. That the data is it was a disc-shaped object. It was a pancake. And you read that in the book and his data collection on that and why he suggests something like this. That's extraordinary. This wasn't a cigar-shaped long object, but it was a disc-shaped object. Now, that, again, for Avi to lay it out there like that, he's going to have people come at him. But he is holding his ground, Isaac.
Oh, he should be able to. He's good. I don't agree with him on that part. But also, when you're down by a lake or a river, you see some rocks that are shaped an awful lot like a disc sometimes too. Those can be natural shapes, same as seeing one that be tube-shaped be kind of weird. Honestly, seeing a tube-shaped one's a little bit weirder. But asteroids are not planets, not stuck together by gravity. And we don't really know the process of forming them. And the circumstance would force anything to be ejected from its solar system. And that does happen all the time, right? They are extraordinary circumstances. We're talking a collision or something else very high energy powered, either whipping out gravitationally or an actual collision. You could get some weird shapes out of something like that. And we don't necessarily want to be assuming, like, if that was a solar sail, one, we never see something that thin. You're not going to make a solar sail that's like, it's like making the sail for your ship, like a normal sail ship, only like a foot thick steel. That wouldn't make a very good sail, but it had to be shaped that way. So, but you can't assume that one purpose is going to do that. Is it disc shaped? It's not my area not to be able to contradict him on that. If he says disc shaped, then it's probably disc shaped. But if I've heard most people say it was skull shaped. I have heard people complain about the artist rendering before. Either way, I don't think it changes about the characteristic of that ship would be. It would not seem to be a solar sail.
Now, what about and we can move on from Oumuamua, but for me, there were two things that happened that were bona fide head scratchers. One, it accelerated, and it accelerated without any gas discharging from it like a comet or something like that. It accelerated, and it took a turn. It turned on its own. And something that we have never seen before. We look at asteroids all the time. We're looking at objects in space all the time, man-made and natural, that have never shown that type of characteristic before. That's a hard position to argue, don't you think?
Could be, but I'll give you one example of how that could happen, right? Let's take, it doesn't matter what the shape is. Let's assume that it's got a bit of a cometary body thing going on. It would collect an awful lot of core material as it came in. Let's say some of that was subsurface. It was starting to cook up. It's getting warmed up. Now it's got some pressure inside it. And it finally reached that point where it's not being held together strong enough anymore and it splits. You get a little bit of piece of it flying off to the side. It's maybe a little too far for us to see. A bit of outgassing we don't really catch because it's quick. Right? That's the biggest reason why I don't think it was a comet is there's a long, extended, protracted tail. But a quick explosion, we would miss that. We would miss that easily. And that would cause it to do a sudden shock acceleration because that is exactly the same as a rocket plume, right? And if you're not looking at just what happens, that would do it. Now, is that what happened? I have no idea. I'm pulling that one out of thin air as of like 10 seconds ago.
Sure.
I'd have to check the math on that. There are better experts to say if that would even be feasible. But that's one that comes to mind. Now, a lot of times what you're looking for isn't, did it do something we think is unnatural, but did it do multiple things that we might expect an artifact to do? Did we get a burst of radio signal from it? Well, at that point, you start having to say, well, it's showing a different type of potential artificiality at that point.
Right.
How would you know you were looking at New York City as opposed to a hill? There'd be a whole bunch of different factors. And again, it could be a probe, but if it is, it's a damaged probe. That would be the key thing. It could be one, but it's damaged probe if it is. And it's not a generation ship because it would meet the characteristic of that.
Yeah, and generational ships, man. Your stuff on that is game changing. Okay, now, but what about the turn? What about the turn?
Well, that would be the same kind of factor there. Like I said, if it's broke apart and did a little rocket pluming, that would do that kind of torn effect, or could do that kind of torn effect. Was that what did it? I have no idea. Again, like I said, I just thought that one up a moment ago. But any sort of unexpected behavior on these things has to be taken in the context that we get only quick photographs of them. They're very blurry. They go through a lot of editing, and it's already headed away from us. We do not have the best angle on it. We only have one angle on it. And, I mean, what we should have done, my opinion anyway, is pour the cash together, throw out a rocket, and follow it. We could have overrun the thing. It would take a couple more years to reach it, but we'd gotten real good looks at it. Whether it's mundane or artificial, and it would answer that question, maybe, we'd have gotten some good data out of that because it was the first time we ever got to look at something close that wasn't from our solar system. So that was a missed window. Technically, we've got decades for it really be into deep, deep space. We could potentially still shoot something after it. But the only way to know on these objects, yes, we look at asteroids all the time. Most don't even have names, but we don't really look at them that close. We've only sent satellites to a couple of them. We have very little on actual data on how these things are put together. We have to build all off of modeling. And so we don't know how often it might be that something that's going through the frozen gas of interstellar space might collect a lot of dust and explode a little bit when it got heated up by the sun. But we know something like that could happen, right? Things like that are covered in pockmarks of collisions. There's all sorts of places that, cold matter could have set out and frozen and expanded unexpectedly. And that could cause a jerky turn like that, or any other number of effects that would seem non-normal gravity ballistic behaviors. But was that what happened? I have no idea. We might want to ask, why would the spaceship have been doing it at that time?
Yeah, well, there's and the the extreme speed that it was traveling, a couple of 100,000 miles an hour, and exiting our soul. Look how long it took for Voyager 1 and 2, Pioneer 11, to exit our solar system. This thing was gone like overnight.
Well, the thing is, it's still actually here. We didn't spot it was on its way out, but it's still not out past Pluto.
No, but look how quick it did it.
Oh, it did go pretty quick, but one thing to keep in context, at its maximum, it was only moving, I think, twice as fast as Mercury normally orbits the sun. And it was fast, but the planets move very fast too.
Right.
It was still only going at like a couple 100,000 miles an hour is how light speed is a couple 100,000 miles a second.
Yes, right. But we shooting a rocket after it, we would have never caught up. I thought the same thing. But if we would have had a response, and the next time around, will we respond accordingly and collect the data? Because we weren't able to get a good image. We weren't able to lock onto it. And by the time it was picked up in Hawaii first, and by the time everybody saw the data, which was a couple of days later, it's gone, right? And we didn't have a way to track it or get imaging onto it with any telescope.
Mm-hmm. Well, we had a couple of thrown together methods that we could have done a crash pursuit of it on. And I think, they probably would have had a limited chance of working, but I think they would have worth trying. So things where you have to throw together very quickly for a rocket on other rockets, not necessarily too feasible from a practical engineering standpoint, but it's doable. And as an example, we need to have something like this in mind. Anyone who's ever read Arthur C. Clarke's Rendezvous with Rama had to be looking at that the whole time, saying to himself, wow, this is exactly like the book. We have to go check this thing out. I do feel like it was a missed opportunity.
It was. Rendezvous with Rama is all I could think about. And not only the book and how it's laid out, but the shape of the object and how Oumuamua was presented. That was some Nostradamus stuff from Arthur C. Clarke to actually have it happen here. I wanted to ask you really quick before we get to the break. Pretty exciting day, with Captain Kirk and Blue Origins. What did you think of that and the touchdown?
I thought it was awesome that he finally has a chance to go to space. And, I don't know. I'm still a huge Star Trek fan this day. I still think that the original series episodes are worth watching. And so it was one of those touching moments. It reminded me a little bit when the call got launched into space, too, though.
Yeah. But I can only imagine for William after Star Trek and, where he is at, to sit there and wonder what it would be like to go to space, what it would be like. And he had decades to think about it. And you get to 90 and you're probably thinking it ain't going to happen. But it did. And how much it must have meant to him. And we saw that today. His emotions just took over.
He's, he's been an idol for so many people for so many years, and that image of space and that frontier in space. And I was glad to see that it clearly meant as much to him as, I don't know. It was like when John Glenn went back up to space again, it was like 20 years ago. I'm from Ohio, so it was a kind of extra special touching event. You knew how much it meant to him to get to go to space again, finally. And I think that's a lot like for today. I'm still kind of processing through it, but
right.
It was a very good day. It's another one of those beacons, and people often feel like we're not making a lot of progress in space, and I can point to things like that and times when SpaceX lands a spaceship, which is still amazing to me, and say, yes, we are making progress. Slower than we'd like, but we are making progress out there.
He said one thing, and I'm glad he put it this way. I don't know if I'm ever going to go to space. I doubt it. But he said one thing that just stuck with. He said, you look down and it's blue, and you look up and it's black, and the blue is like a blanket, and it was just like, you know what I mean? And it was what an interesting take, and how emotionally that was the thing that he projected out first, was that kind of statement. That was just great.
It's nice to get the viewpoint from anyone who's just not been a professional astronaut training up for that forever and a day, too. So.
Exactly. You know, it's probably how I would say it. I look down blue, I look up black. You know?
My God, this planet's big.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely incredible. Okay. When we come back, we're going to jump into the physics of a Tic Tac. And you have you presented these ideas of physics, interstellar travel, faster than light, different ideas and theories and propulsion systems. You've spent a lot of time on this, and we're going to set this up for when we return. When you look at the evidence that the Navy has put forward and the UAP task force, the physics of this, what do you think? I mean, is this a possibility? We're going to do the deep dive when we come back, but is it possible for the characteristics of these Tic Tacs to happen?
Not with anything we have right now, if our estimates for the acceleration are correct. Well, nothing manned anyway.
Yeah, because the numbers, as presented, when you're talking about these kinds of G-forces and this kind of speed, I was talking about this last night on the show, when you look at the data of our hypersonic program and Russia's hypersonic missile program, as impressive as it is, it's slow, right? We're talking about thousands of miles per hour. And what is happening with this Tic Tac, that's a totally different conversation, isn't it?
It's at the very edge of what we could reasonably do with an unmanned missile on paper, if for the higher end estimates. It's pretty dubious inside known physics to do with anything that might be complicated or human for those higher end estimates, at least. Yeah.
Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, the one and only Isaac Arthur. IsaacArthur.net is his website. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com and throughout social media. And go check out his YouTube channel if you haven't already. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. More with Isaac when we come back. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30daysfree on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Because you never got that pony you always wanted. Damn it. Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer. Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B blend for 15% off of your order today.
Hello, I'm Katie and you're listening to my main man Jimmy Church on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here repping the planet and you're listening to my good friend Jimmy Church. Fade to Black.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We are also Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. And you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Isaac Arthur is with us. The physics of a Tic Tac. We're going to get into all of that. And tomorrow night is Fader night with open lines all night long, so you're not going to want to miss that. But Isaac, this is a zone right now, getting into this, that is, especially in the UFO community and the UFO circles. This is a polarizing subject right now, and there are those in the UFO community that have been waiting for government participation in this subject, and then bringing stuff forward, and it's happening at a very fast clip. And the other side of it is, discussing really what we are talking about here in the physics side of it. The interesting part as we get into this is that the UAP Task Force report that was released back on June 25th said this. I'm paraphrasing, but they said... Isaac is drinking coffee, by the way. That's what everybody is listening to. Hey, hold up your mug. What does your mug say?
It says, if brute force isn't working, you aren't using enough of it. Science Futures of Isaac Arthur.
I've got to get me one of those T-shirts, by the way. Is this? The UAP Task Force said it's not ours. It's not a foreign adversary. So that leaves it in a third category, and we're calling it other. Now, and judging from what you just said, right, it is beyond what we could do even on paper. On paper, things are possible. But that is a very interesting take from our Department of Defense to say that it's not us. Well, that's a head-scratcher. Okay. Let's talk about going from the radar signatures stating that Kevin Day, who was manning the Spy 1 radar on the USS Princeton, was on with us last week on the show. And he says that they were at a suborbital altitude of around 80,000 feet and went from 80,000 feet to 28,000 feet where they staged. And there were approximately 10 objects, came down to 28,000 feet in 0.7 seconds. Now, let's start right there. How is that possible?
Not with anything we've got right now, but let's say if this was true, and mind you, that could be instrumental reading or bad observation. But if it's true and he's on the mark, that's that higher end of estimates. We start talking about being able to do accelerations of as much as 5,000 G, as opposed to 10 like the best jet fighter might. And that's also we start getting the point of saying this thing has to have had a power available to it of something like 1,000 gigawatts, which again, nuclear power plant's about 1 to 2. And like the shuttle, when it launches, when it leaves that gigantic flame that shakes everything for miles around, that's about 12 gigawatts. So we're talking about something that would be at least 100 times more powerful to pull that maneuver off than what the shuttle would do. So that's the kind of power it has to have available. Now, on the other side, that is kind of the power you'd expect a interstellar spaceship to have available to it. So it's, if we're going into the zone of assuming that that's what we saw, and I would dispute that that's not necessarily what we did see, but if that is what we're saying it is for the moment, that's the kind of power we're looking at, something capable of doing thousands of G's of acceleration and thousands of gigawatts of turning power. And that's if it's just as light as an aircraft is. If it was heavier than that, which could be, even more power.
Now,
totally might just use some completely unknown physics too, so which is not better.
Right. Okay, so let's stay right there for a second. Kevin stated that the Spy 1 radar system, which is the most advanced radar system on the planet, this was observed from multiple ships. It wasn't just one radar system. So it was seen this way with multiple Spy 1 radar systems. But combined with that was the visual contact that the pilots made. He also observed this. He went from below deck with the radar room, and he was the commander of the radar room. He's the guy walking in the background behind the radar operators, and he's commanding his crew. He went above deck, got on, I forget what they call the big binoculars, right? And he copped a visual, and he was watching these from a great distance. So it's not just the Spy 1, but you have the eyewitness accounts from the pilots. So it doesn't appear to be, listen, I'm a skeptic on all of this because it's too extraordinary. But you had the combination of human eyeballs and the radar data. Now, how do you approach that?
Well, I don't know that we actually have gotten to see the real radar data itself. One of the problems we have with a lot of the data from the Navy is, I would say we don't really tend to trust the government too much when it comes to anything involving UFOs, and for good reason. Even if we're not assuming they're hiding them, we also know they're not going to actually show us in a lot of cases anything that's going to reveal the edge of our technology to the opposition. You don't want them to know exactly what your aperture speed is or what that trick is that causes, like we saw with gimbal, we assume the one interpretation of the gimbal one, the camera to mess up and lose track, right? So the radar data, I don't know that we've really gotten to see that exactly, to see what the arrows on it would be. I do know that from what we can see from the image, for instance, we can come with a couple of different contradictory values for what the acceleration might be, some of which are as low as like 70 G, which is nothing we have right now, but is in the zone of what we could make for a missile, and an unmanned one at that. But again, there's not enough, unless we actually have the raw data ourselves and we know it's the raw data, I'm hesitant to say that we can look at it with confidence. Because, again, this got delayed so long, probably because I would guess the Navy was wanting to edit out anything that would cause them problems, or at least wait till it wasn't going to cause them problems with releasing, concealed, sensitive, vital technology to the opposition. But was that what the actual real radar said? That's what the guy thinks it says, and it's his system. I betcha he's probably not lying, and I betcha he knows it pretty well. So I would say that the radar, he could be mistaken, but I suspect we're getting an honest assessment of what they think the radar said.
And the radar did this over and over again. This wasn't one isolated incident.
No, so we can't just say it was like one incoming meteor that exploded or something like that.
Right. And which I find that very, very compelling. And just to be clear here with you, Isaac, my audience already knows this. I don't believe that the 3 videos released that are out there, the gimbal, Tic Tac, and the Go Fast, I don't think that those show anything. I'm not convinced of that. It doesn't match up with the radar and the human, the eyewitness testimony. That it's 2 different things.
Yeah,
and
I generally tend to think Thor was the only one that was significant. To me, gimbal and Go Fast are both pretty clear data errors or weather balloon. I would say the weather balloon, but there are actually like thousands of weather balloons. I think Go Fast with a weather balloon.
Yeah, you had to say weather balloon. Didn't you? I know. You just had to go there. But this is the other point. When the radar data is showing these objects coming down, and Kevin Day, who was on the show with us last Monday, it was a great show. You should listen to it. Kevin then orders flights to take place, and Commander Fravor and Alex Dietrich, his wing person, she's a she, Alex. They take off and they head out to this location. And then he sees the Tic Tac, which he described as 40 feet long, round, no appendages, no propulsion, no noise, no wings, nothing like that. It looked like a 40-foot Tic Tac. Now we've got a visual of what was identified on radar. To hear that description coming from him, and with all of your knowledge, what did you think of his eyewitness account?
Again, the guy is an expert at his field, though I will, as always, say, I was field artillery. We're all supposed to be trained in how to spot things a certain distance, and we're pretty good at it. We used to make mistakes all the time. I'd watch people be off by miles, and I did it myself too. So the eyewitness account is strong, but not necessarily compelling. I remember he says, Favor's case, we had the data from that had indicated the radar on that was that it could be 150 Gs. I remember seeing that from a paper one time, though greatest thought I had to double check that. And he had the visual on that and the radar on his particular case. It's a strong case, but it's one where, based on his only, it could be a missile, not one of ours, not one of the other guys that we know of, but it's in the zone of something that would be buildable if one really wanted to. So did he see what he saw? Yeah, absolutely. What was it? He doesn't know. I don't know. It is that one, at least his sighting is inside the area of what we might be able to build based on my own opinion. The other stuff with it coming down from the sky at the same time, with the radar returns, with the stuff hovering in the air, with the tones involved from that, doesn't fit the picture as well, though. So I can't really tack up and say that's something we could build. But with what he witnessed specifically, that one might be buildable. And again, for all of these, we're assuming that these are honest witnesses and that they are expert witnesses. Those are both debatable, but I'm not going to. So.
Right, and so the other part of this is he gets into sort of a dogfight, right? He goes into a spiral down, looking at the Tic Tac. It is above the ocean at sea level. And then this thing takes off, and it's like following him in the spiral. Alex Dietrich is watching this, and then he describes it as taking off like that, and is gone, and within a second. Now, it's one thing, and I understand what you're saying because I'm with you on this. Could this be our technology in the spiral? This wasn't maximum Gs. This wasn't crazy crazy stuff. It was just a circular motion with this Tic Tac under some kind of intelligent control because it is following him. Then it stops and then takes off, disappears over the horizon, and it's gone under a second. Again, let's talk about the physics of something like that. If what he saw was what he saw, how was that possible?
Well, I'm going to spin something up just off the top of my head. And let's say it was like a tank sabo. It's a missile whose job is to get in the position, turn to an angle, and then fire another really fast shot like a railgun out of it, or another sub-rocket. That could cause that kind of visual effect. This is, again, at least less likely than he himself is suggesting there. This is off the top of my head, but that's how you can get that kind of characteristic. A secondary vehicle, or bullet in this case, launches. Anyone seen tracer fire out of a gun knows those can look like, well, they look like a laser beam practically, right? Mm-hmm. You could have something like that, take a shot, and bullets can undergo thousands of G's of acceleration. That was basically just getting into position and then fired. And that is something we discussed as a potential weapon system before. You send the missile out in a given direction, and then it uses main fuel or its whole package to basically do a tank saber on something else. It fires a shot at an angle. I think David Weber used to like to do that with spaceships. They'd send the device out, and it was a missile, but it actually exploded near the ship and shot a beam in from a different direction to cause it to get around things' shields, for instance, or frontal armor. I have no idea if that's anything like that. Like I said, I'm spinning it out of nowhere, but that's one of the ways you would get that weird kind of characteristic of it acting normally, and I do say that would seem impossible for that vehicle 1 second earlier.
Now,
so it turns, it spins, and it shoots a shot out, and that's what we see. The vehicle is depowered now, so you don't see it the best way because it just falls down, or something like that.
Does this smell? Let's get into the smell test. Does this smell of an anti-gravitic type of propulsion system? If you don't have wings, you don't have airfoils, you don't have a rocket engine coming out of the back, you don't have flames, you don't have any of that. Is this some type of anti-gravitic technology?
There's always a possibility on something like this. When you're talking about technologies you don't have even on the drawing board, trying to say what they could or couldn't be is tricky. But if you have no rocket flame that's causing acceleration, your options are essentially it's pushing against something gravitically or magnetically. Both of those are options. It's pushing you using some unknown force, of course. It's firing neutrinos out the backside of it. That's a possibility too. It's firing something that's not visible to the eye and doesn't cause an obvious ripple effect in the air around it, which neutrinos are an example of. Neutrinos make a great drive system. It could be firing dark matter out the back of it. That would do the same effect too. It could even be firing tiny little micro black holes out the back of it. There's a lot of options for a potential propulsion system that we wouldn't see ourselves and which wouldn't have an obvious effect on the air around it or one of our detectors. So we can't jump from the one to say gravitic drive. Would that be something a gravitic drive could potentially do? Potentially, yeah. Again, technologies we don't have, we can't talk about too much with real detail. One thing that always has to be kept in mind, though, is if you're under known physics and you want to change your direction, and again, we don't know the under known physics either, you got to push against something. You could be pushing against the planet. That's what the gravity drive is kind of nice guy as an idea as. But if you're not, that's a lot of energy you're spending. You have to be able to get it from somewhere. And the way we looked at the thing turning, like if it was doing a 5,000 G turn and it has the mass of, an airplane, then it was using the kind of energies that the entire planetary economy uses in a given moment. Thousands of nuclear reactors worth. And whether it's using a gravity drive to do that or not, it still should have to pay that energy bill. Now, of course, if it's a Star spaceship, they probably have some way to pay that energy bill.
And that's very interesting. Let's stay right there for a second. When we talk about 80,000 feet, suborbital, that's high, right? Down to 28,000 feet and stopping, it sounds impressive, right? Okay, we could see that in a movie, but in the real world, to stop from that kind of speed takes a lot of energy. And we would see that expulsion of energy, right? Wouldn't there be an effect on everything around it to just stop at that point?
There's many ways something could stop. Like, you don't have to have an onboard power supply to stop in the atmosphere. What you could do is aerobrake, right? So how would you aerobrake that quick? Well, you need a parachute that was huge compared to your ship in terms of mass. But you might actually be able to do something like that with, like, graphene. We always talk about graphene, that awesome stuff for space elevators that we can produce now, just not necessarily in ideal quantities. That makes for an amazingly good parachute if you got that mastered, because it's a few atoms thick. You could do 1 ton of the stuff, could do a kilometer wide parachute with ease. And that's got the tensile strength to pull something to a stop that fast without wrecking itself. So that would be an example of where you could aerobrake, but you'd see that.
You would see
all
it.
that,
right?
Yeah, all that. It's not just that you see the chute too. All that energy the ship had just had to get scattered into the air.
Right.
Off the top of my head, I don't know how much kinetic energy that ship would have. No, it would be without its mass. But over an entire kilometer of air, I still think you'd see an infrared blow, if not a visible one, from something like that.
You would see a blowout of the water too, as well. You would it would have to go somewhere.
Yeah, you'd have something, a ripple effect. Now, I can't tell you that would be something they would definitely have known or seen. It could easily, if you're flying in a jet with all the air ripples going on, you could easily maybe miss something like that. But again, I'm spinning stuff up out of nowhere. Someone might be able to come up with a reason why that would not work. But that would be an example of how, without killing fuel, something under known science that we could potentially build could stop like that. Now, I don't know how it would suddenly start spinning around the air with its own fuel right at that, but that would be an example of one way it could stop. And I don't know why you would be doing that procedure either, but
well, they were
that anywhere over somebody else's territory where they might be able to spot you too if it's a secret prototype weapon.
Sure. Now, the other part of this, and this is something that you have done very, very deep research into, is you in order for this to occur without anything happening around it, you would have to have your own gravity well around you, inside of the ship and around the ship, where our gravity here on Earth has nothing to do with what is happening with the Tic Tac, where G-forces don't matter. The ship is being held together and not falling apart because it's in its own bubble of gravity. Is this the reason why we didn't see any effects in our atmosphere?
I mean, we don't, again, know how an inertial compensator like they have in Star Trek would work, for instance, so we can't say that it would have no effect around it, but you'd always expect the energy had to go somewhere. I mean, inertial compensators are a little bit like the casual artificial gravity you have on spaceships. It's kind of an acknowledgement of Hollywood's limitations of special effects.
Sure.
There's not really a lot of science for how that would work, but we don't believe that gravity and inertia are really actually related like we think they are. Your gravity, we think, might be completely separate from inertia, even though they both go off of mass. You got your inertial mass and your gravitic, active and passive gravitic mass, and they might be unrelated, and it might be you can shut one off. That's kind of what the interest in the Higgs boson really is at the end of the day, is that's how we think inertia might work. If you could shut that off, and again, that's one of those technologies like perpetual motion machines that every alien empire should be working frenetically on figuring out how to do. If it can be done, they'll figure it out. Then you could potentially get stuff like that. I would, though, say on the more mundane side, we have fuses that get found out of artillery shells, for instance, or bullets that undergo 1,000 Gs of acceleration are still functional. Most sensitive technology couldn't survive even 100 Gs normally, but you can build that would let do a little bit more. And of course, humans can't survive that either, but we don't need humans to fly ships anymore. So we just have to have an assumption that somebody was able to build something that handled that amount of inertia, and we probably could build something that could continue to run a drone at like 1,000 Gs of acceleration. I think that's inside our tech right now. Grain of salt. I bet it would be inside aliens, for instance, too. We don't have to assume they necessarily have a way to keep somebody alive inside there through inertia. It might be only a post-biological item in there.
Now, and when we come back off of the break, I want to talk about this further. Is the question of if this is our tech, then it may be backwards engineered from a captured, crashed alien flying saucer, for the lack of a better word. And we have backwards engineered that technology into this Tic Tac. Is this pushing things a little bit too far?
It's technology we don't have a good basis in science for, so if it's doing what that's expected to do, it probably wasn't from all labs that we got the idea.
And
So
you
it's
laugh,
possible.
but it is possible. Let's take this, theoretically speaking. If it is possible, and our government is saying it's not ours, could Russia or China have leapfrogged way past us in this tech race with technology that they've studied and engineered and are now demonstrating these capabilities on us?
It's always possible, but if it was the Russians, I'd expect them to have displayed that technology a little bit more openly. I mean, honestly, I don't think they could have pulled off. They're better at keeping secrets than we are, at least. But I think they'd have used it for other purposes by now.
And same would go for the Chinese.
Yeah. And there's so many other applications too. As I say, it's not anything can be weaponized. At the end of the day, if you got something that produces an awful lot of energy like this to let you turn it as a ship, its most weaponizable aspect isn't the cool missile it makes. It's the million hyper-powered, super profitable factories you can run on it instead as an engine. The power plant in this thing is just too handy not to employ in your civilian infrastructural economy, because then you could dominate by simply producing way more guns and tanks of a conventional nature than everybody else.
Yeah, you've talked about this before on your web series. I find that very compelling. Let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Isaac Arthur. We are talking about the physics of a Tic Tac. More with Isaac after this short break. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Isaac Arthur. Tomorrow night is Fader night, open lines all night long. Tonight we're talking about the physics of a Tic Tac. And now, continuing this conversation, I am just going to say this pretty directly because I did ask for permission. Jack Sarfati, a physicist out there, has been presenting a lot of math about the physics of a Tic Tac and how this technology is being used today. And I asked Jack for his permission if I could send his stuff out to various physicists that I know out there at Caltech, MIT, and Harvard, which I did do. And I also sent this some of this. It's a lot of stuff. I sent some of it to Isaac as well. Jack replied back. He said, "Go ahead, Jimmy. Go ahead." I said, "All right." So I sent it out over the last week, and I sent some stuff to you, Isaac. And when you look at these equations, I'm not going to go to your responses to me. I'm just going to ask you directly. When you look at the math from Sarfati, does it make sense?
The math I saw made sense, but it was mostly just a repeat of the usual Cavendish experiment for figuring out gravity.
Expand on that. That's too simplistic.
Well, a long time ago, Cavendish was a scientist trying to measure the constant of gravity, which we have now down to, I don't even remember how many digits. It was 8 when I was in college, and it's very tricky to do. They used to do this in Joni where they actually had to chase bullets out with a shotgun because them just flying over the lab would mess up the experiment for the day. But you basically tend to hang two big steel balls near each other and move them closer or further from each other and see how much they change compared to what you'd expect if they weren't having the gravity factor in. That's one of the many ways that it's done. And most of the stuff that you had shown me at the time from him was basically just a repeat of the equations that you could find almost anywhere from that. I didn't see anything in there one way or another that was controversial.
But does the math show an anti-gravity propulsion system?
Nothing that I was shown. No, nothing that you sent me that from his work indicated anything to do with anti-gravity.
And
it mostly just looked like a way you would check if something was if you had it on hand. If I was reading it right.
And how far advanced, because there's been a lot of research into this, how far along are we with anti-gravity and specifically the math? Because all of this is on paper and whiteboards and inside of computers.
I was going to say, if you want to know how far along we are anti-gravity development, nowhere. In paper, though, we've got it pretty well mapped out. Depends on the cosmological model. It looks different under string theory, for instance, than it does under standard model and under general relativity from quantum mechanics and so on. Our knowledge of gravity has expanded vastly since Einstein's day and Newton's day, and it's still really tiny. So we don't have anything approaching good. We have some good theoretical bases, but even those are pretty limited. But our experimental modeling and our technology for it, even more so, is just very limited with gravity. There is no force that we have known about as long as it, and there's no force we understand as badly as it.
Yeah, I remember asking you directly a few years ago that does anybody have a definition of gravity that works? I mean, does anybody understand gravity? And clearly the answer is no, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'd modify that. We understand its effect pretty well. You know, we know how the dog balks. We don't know how it works very well, though. But it's improving. We got those. We finally showed at least that gravity waves exist with the LIGO experiments a few years back, and the most energetic events in the universe, when the two black holes collide. But that's not a very common experiment to be able to actually perform, because you're really waiting on those to happen. But our knowledge improves, but it's sadly lacking.
And when we talk about anti-gravity, and specifically about an object, like the Tic Tac, what are we exactly talking about here? I mean, it's such a freely used term. when it's so misunderstood, anti-gravity. But you would effectively, I want to hear from you, but I guess what it means is you're neutralizing the effects of gravity with something that prevents gravity from attracting or repelling, right?
Well,
because
that's
gravity.
kind of a caveat approach. Way back in H.G. Wells', I can't even remember the name of the book. The one that we go to the moon in, though, they invented a thing called caverite for the scientists who had it, which was basically just repelled gravity, so it bounced off it like it was a light beam. That's one model that could potentially be true for gravity. That's the gravitons are just like little photons. You could bounce them off it. That's usually thought to be wrong under the Einsteinian approach, which is that space-time itself is warping. And so if that was how it ended up working, that would be an example of how you could have anti-gravity in the sense that wasn't so much anti-gravity as gravity reflecting. I don't think that's how gravity works, but it's still in the zone of ones that could potentially be true. That would be one example of a gravity neutralizing anti-gravity device. Other ones would be ones that, There's so many various ways you could do it based on how the actual physics of it really turns out, but anti-gravity is inside the scope of what might be possible, because, again, we can generate every other force, and we should be able to find some way to generate gravity. Obviously, we can just by using large masses, but it's not necessarily what you'd expect for use for a ship to get slowed down really quick like that. That might be how you pushed on things, but what you'd be looking more there would be not the gravity component of it, but rather that inertia component. And again, mass works with inertia and works with gravity, but under the standard model, they're not actually the same thing. They just not coincidentally probably, but they just happen to use that same concept of mass. If you had something that could eliminate something's inertia mass or temporarily drop it, that would let you do exactly what was being done there, but not necessarily using energy. If your inertial mass was something you could flip down to 1% of what it normally was, you'd suddenly be going 100 times faster without having to add any energy whatsoever. Conversely, if you could suddenly kick it up to be 100 times higher than it previously been, you suddenly slow to 1% of your previous speed. If you could master that kind of technology, and that was actually possible because that was how that worked out, if that was the real physics of the case, then you could do things like that with a ship without needing a huge power supply.
Now, okay, so it sounds like you are in agreement with the UAP task force. It's not. It's not ours, right?
They're pretty wide, and they left a lot of latitude in their comments.
They did.
I don't think it was one of ours. I don't think it was one of the any other. I don't believe that whatever they saw belonged to any country out there on this planet. You know, like I'm not going to say it absolutely didn't. And I don't believe anybody involved in the report was intentionally being incorrect with their information either.
So, what is left, Isaac? What is left? What is left?
As we say with Sherlock Holmes, once you've ruled out the possible, whatever it is, no matter how improbable, must be what it is. We have a lot it could still be. We don't want to jump the gun on it too much. It could be a natural phenomena. It could be, I mean, it's not going to be the one example I presented was like a meteor falling and exploding at that height. That's not going to work out to be the case. But there's a lot of things it could be, including instrument error. Again, we are assuming everyone was an honest witness, but that doesn't mean they were a correct witness. And there's a lot of things that can fool radar. There's a lot of things that can screw up radar returns. You could potentially get a radar signature off of something hot coming in, and what they see is the object coming down, and then a flash of steam from all the air that's superheated that causes a radar return. These kind of things are still on the table. We don't have enough to be able to say what it was, and that means there's a lot we can't rule out yet either. But it wasn't a terrestrially created ship if it met any of those characteristics. At least if it was, it's from somebody who has an amazingly good research team and an amazingly bad one when it comes to strategic usage, since there's so much they could do with that. They got the best geniuses in the world working for them, succeeding, and the people employing it don't know what they're doing.
Okay, so now let's take nuts and bolts out of it. Let's take a physical craft out of it. Let's take anti-gravity out. Let's take all of that out. But stay in the physics world. What about a projection of light? What about a hologram? What about a plasma image being projected out? That certainly would cover a lot of different things. It would cover the speed factor. It would cover the stopping factor. It would no energy being emitted. could it be something as simple as a projection?
Yes. Yeah. Especially something along magnetic lines will work really well. Radar is obviously going to go right through a hologram, but that's only if you're using the classic light hologram approach. There's a lot of ways that you could potentially be screening with matter in a local area that cause a radar return. Ionizing it real quick could cause it.
Right.
And radar returns are such weak things that we assume that the radar return is bouncing off a piece of metal.
Mm-hmm.
But or something else, because we have a lot of known things that regularly happen that we encounter. What could do that? Well, I mentioned earlier that graphene option of like a parachute made of ultra thin, ultra light graphene. What if it was a parachute made with a plasma window instead? A plasma window, you suddenly heat the stuff up, and it causes ionized particles to deflect away from it. It's something we've looked at as a potential for putting over airlocks, like a force field in space, just to slow that air loss down. Could something like that be done? Could someone have been screwing around with something along the lines of a projector, a plasma projector, to as a potential way of shooting down all planes or screwing their instruments? Why would you ever test your equipment, whether you're an alien or another country, anywhere near an aircraft carrier squadron? Well, presumably either you want them to see it or you need them there because they are a component of your experiment, e.g. you'd want to see if they could pick you up, for instance, or if your device for screwing with their returns or their registers or their data worked, right? And if you got a decent spy system, you can probably find out if something as simple as was an aircraft carrier suddenly convinced that they'd come across something they didn't want to see, or just by looking at them and seeing how they'd gotten ramped up from the event and sent out all the planes to go check it out. Could someone have done something like that? Yes. While we're assuming it's a spaceship, manned or unmanned, the physics doesn't work out too well. But again, that's only a limited number of the options. Someone could have been doing something along those lines. It could be also a non-singular craft. They could have been something like a cluster drone where they had something that came down really fast, exploded into a whole bunch of little drones. Lots of options that could potentially be the case. We shouldn't assume that if we can rule one of them out, that definitely means a different answer. And there's a lot you can do that can screw with radar returns, infrared returns, and obviously visual returns too. But the visual component's the smallest one because it's really just very tiny things people saw.
Now, what about...
we got a clear image, as it were.
Now, what about the physics of plasma and having a plasma image out there? We do know that DARPA and the Air Force has been working with this technology for a long time to project a fake aircraft out there that looks like an aircraft, that returns a radar signature like an aircraft, but it's not, and it's a plasma projection. What is plasma, and how is it possible to morph it into a shape and project it out there?
Well, plasma itself is just, at a basic level, it's material that's not a gas anymore because it's so superheated that it's getting ionized, so the electrons are coming off it. The sun's exterior surface is made out of plasma, for instance, so is the interior. You get them inside of fluorescent light bulbs, too. That's full of plasma. And completely unrelated to the kind of things you have in blood plasma. It's just a similar word, but origin-wise. Can we make the stuff? Absolutely, we do it all the time. As we used to run a TV in a way you can think of like the old... well, it's kind of the exact opposite of plasma, actually. But the old electron tubes inside, vacuum tubes inside the old TVs, they throw the ion out there, and that's being guided magnetically. That's an example of how you control a plasma. The one problem you have with using stuff in the air, because something we can absolutely make, it goes really fast, right, if you're doing it right, is that it tends to interact with everything. Plasma weapons, as an example, not long range usually because they interact with everything. They're ionized particles. They're electrically charged. They want to interact with everything. Plasma hitting this atmosphere above is what we see for the aurora borealis, for instance. But there are things you could do to generate a plasma locally, for instance. You might be able to send a beam that interacted at a certain distance with a pocket of a cloud of air, like water air, and suddenly turn all that into a plasma, and that's what caused that signature return. Trying to create a false image with it, though, don't think of it as like we're going to make an actual projected image of a aircraft carrier that you're sitting there looking at 5 feet away like, wow, that's realistic. Think of it more as we could use it to project something that would cause a radar return or an infrared return that would blip like that. I think most people miss that almost all interactions with these things are right at the edge of detectability. They're that fuzzy little dot. Because we look at them, we can foresee them, which is within the fuzzy dot stage. That's where almost all this stuff is taking place at. So things like that are an option. And certainly would that be something that we be interested in resourcing? Well, we know we are. Right? It's not like it's even a secret. We're looking into trying to do that. Are other countries doing it? I'd assume so. I don't know if they're even doing it secretly. They might be openly doing it. I'm just not aware of it. Of course, there'd be a great thing you'd want to do is find a way to distract an aircraft carrier fleet if you're not the U.S., because that's one of our hugest military advantages, that gigantic ability to send an aircraft carrier into a region. If you can do anything that screws their detection capability, that outfox them, that lets you scuttle their returns so you get a missile into them, that changes the game enormously and thus will be high on almost anybody's list of things to try to do. Is that what this was the case? I have no idea. It might be, again, it's not a spaceship anyone on this planet made, or an aircraft anyone on this planet made. That doesn't mean it wasn't a projectile we made, for instance. That's an option.
Now, if does this demonstrate to you everything that you've just explained to me? We are repeating ourselves in that we don't understand what has been going on. We clearly don't understand that, and that goes right back to what the UAP Task Force report said. We don't understand. We don't know what it is, but we also don't understand. If aliens are visiting this planet, it would be technology that we wouldn't understand, right?
Potentially. There's a tendency to think they say, well, if we were to go backward in time, everyone would think we were gods. In point of fact, I could show a blacksmith back in Egypt, ancient pyramid days, how to build a refrigerator nowadays the way that he'd understand in less than a day of me just explaining it. Our technology is impressive in the scientific angle, but most of it, other than like smartphones and computers, is pretty intuitively obvious. And it all works on stuff that they get. A primitive tribe is not going to not understand what a car was for if they get to explain to them. They might think it's a weird monster at first, but they could hypothesize that it was a chariot, and it was a weird one. We shouldn't assume that alien technology is necessarily going to completely fox us and be something we just don't recognize what it is. Of course, that said, there's a high probability that would completely confuse us and look completely alien and weird, and we'd have no idea how it worked. We also don't want to assume that the answer is going to be something really mysterious. It might turn out to just be mundane, but we just didn't think of it. It's like the paperclip or other inventions that afterwards people go, well, in retrospect, that was really obvious, but none of us caught it. That happens a lot. we should never, humility is an important thing for us to always have on all these things. We don't know what it was at this time. It might turn out that it was a fireworks show from an alien civilization show to say hello, and they can't believe we didn't catch the obvious sign. It might be that it was a mundane phenomenon that happens all the time, like ball lightning, and we just never saw it before. It might be someone's new technology. It might even be a spaceship. We just had bad vegetable returns. And what it is right now, we don't know, but we don't want to jump to too many conclusions about what it could be.
Now, one of the things that you have presented over the years is self-replicating, self-manufacturing drones that an intelligent civilization would use to map the galaxy and map the universe and go out and explore different alien planets, and that would be their job, and we will probably be doing this soon ourselves. And could this be an example of drones that are self-replicating and just going out and checking out the Milky Way?
Sure. A von Neumann probe, as it's usually called for the mathematician, is basically the idea that you send a little probe and it arrives in a system, scans it around, makes a bunch of copies of itself, and it go out to other solar systems further away. And of course, it might do a number of other things too. The version that's called a berserker goes out and finds alien life and kills it. Right? There's a lot of options you could do there, but the whole thing works around the idea of a self-replicating thing. You almost have to have this do space travel. But it doesn't necessarily have to be too complex. We have, from science fiction, this tendency to think of it as nanotechnology, mostly because the only way you can really do nanotechnology is with self-replicating machines. They have to imitate microbes at war. But you can have a clanking self-replicator, as we call it, that's just basically a gigantic factory that has the ability to make every component it needs, including the robots that go dig up new bits of metal for it to make. And that would be, in many ways, like us, a very complicated system of many different components that's self-replicating. Humans have millions of different types of self-replicators in us that are even genetically related to us in the last billion years, and we use them as part of our machinery. Would aliens have this technology? Almost certainly, if they can make it here. I expect us to have at least the basic technology for this inside the next 20 or 30 years. Mm-hmm. And I suspect we could put together a clanking self-replicator now if we wanted to. It's just that we already have mostly self-perpetuating systems that don't necessarily benefit from bringing that into play. We probably could put one together if we really want to, a machine able to make itself from scratch. This is not necessarily a huge advantage.
It's just a 3D printer, basically.
Yeah. It's a 3D printer that is able to print all its components and has to have, at least as one of those components, the ability to harvest the material it prints out of.
Land on an asteroid and start cranking stuff out.
Yeah. It's great for starting up stuff in a new area. Inside an existing economy like ours, a little bit less so. And so that's probably why we wouldn't see one develop in the next decade or so, because it's not really a high priority to put something like that together. But we'll have it inside the century at the latest. And that's going to change all of space colonization.
Absolutely. And so would this be an example, just based on the evidence that has been presented in front of you and the rest of the world, could this just be alien probes? Nothing violent. They're not here to take over anything. They're just here to do a drive-by.
I mean, that's always a possibility. One example I like to use a lot of times is if it was meant to be a check to just see us without us letting see them, that it was pretty sloppy because we spot them all the time, apparently. If, on the other hand, it was meant to be a hello, it was pretty sloppy. But we also have to keep in mind, he was like, well, we never make that kind of mistake. We make mistakes all the time. All stuff comes crashing down all the time, too. So we could actually be seeing examples of alien technology that was not as well designed as it should have been for the mission involved, or which happened to break down coincidentally. But the first self-replicators you send out on space are probably the one everyone encounters anyway. So in many ways, your prototype, because it's got the head start, is what everyone's going to come across. They could be messed up ones, but I don't know why. I mean, an alien spaceship is likely to include self-replicating technology, but nothing about that particular incident says self-replicating. On the fact, that if you had the technology of the one, you probably got the technology of the other. If it was a probe landing here, I will put one caveat on that. I really don't expect a lot of probes to use self-replicating technology wherever they could get into kind of collisions or damage. I think you send a self-replicator into the solar system to land on an asteroid. At least that's how I would do it. An asteroid out in the middle of nowhere, cannibalize that thing to make all the tools you need for in that system, which shouldn't be that many if you're just doing an exploratory. And you don't let any of the things you send out from there have self-replicating ability, because every time you send out a genuine self-replicator, your odds of mutation and problem go up a little bit more. Plus, anytime you send out more technology than you need, that's something that if the alien race that recovers it has hostile intent, gives them one extra bit to, retro engineer. And you should always assume that if you're dealing with, clever aliens or monkeys, they're going to figure out a way to back engineer anything you've got.
So what you're saying is there would have to be an off switch with the replication. Otherwise, you would have trillions to the power of trillions drones flying around.
Yeah, and I mean, we see that in self-replicating machines, too. You get that paperclip maximizer scenario where it turns everything into paperclips. But we have that with self-replicating machines, and we have that built-in off switch. Say, well, why is there a kill switch on our cells? Well, there has to be. Otherwise, you get, any cell that grows faster than the others becomes the one that dominates the whole area. You get basically cancer. So we have telomeres and things like that say stop replicating. Any of the cells in your body that are designed to replicate quickly don't get to do it on their own. They have a built-in kill switch on them. Your somatic cells, those needed for replication, that are the ones that have the ability to just keep cleaning and replicating themselves over and over again, and they don't. They are for a very simple purpose of reproducing the entire organism, not just skin cells. That has to be built in there. Any self-replicating system has to have that built in. It'll probably eventually evolve that way too, but anybody who's got the technology to make these probably was evolved for somebody that has that built in, is going to be able to say, well, maybe before we do something incredibly stupid like destroy the universe or at least the galaxy, we should actually replicate off of, our own cells, the biology around us, and the lessons it's learned. Although I will say that with a grain of salt, we should never underestimate how intelligent aliens are, but we should also never underestimate how stupid they are based on ourselves.
Look at ourselves every time. Look at me. So you can get an intelligence level right there. But this is the thing, and I want to discuss this more when we come back off of the break. It appears, I want you to put your alien ET hat on, Isaac. It appears that they've got an interest in our Navy. We haven't seen Tic Tacs over Los Angeles. We haven't seen Tic Tacs over Dayton, Ohio, right? I don't think you've seen any lately from your home. But why? Why the interest in our Navy off of both of our coast, but we don't hear reports of the Japanese Navy, the Australian Navy, the British Navy, the Royal Navy with these encounters. It just seems to be the United States. If you're ET, why is this?
Well, we got a few possible reasons this to be the case. One, if it is ET, it might be that they're particularly interested in who's got the best technology, and our Navy does have the best. Well, at least the U.S. has the best military technology, usually. The other option, of course, is if it's basically on detection grids, same thing. We're most likely to spot them seeing us, right? It's hard to hide, and if you are trying to hide, the people who have the best vision are the ones most likely to catch you doing it. So that might be the reason why, too. Then the flip side of that, of course, is that if it's a more terrestrial-based thing, the people who are trying to look at how do I test this new prototype, they're always going to want to go take on the A-team for that. If you're trying to see, can I get this secret little missile or ship or whatever through, you don't go and pester the folks in Bolivia. No offense to Bolivia. You go take on the U.S. Navy or the U.S. Air Force. So go to the pros if you want to see how good your stuff is.
Yeah, and if you're arriving off planet here and you're going to obviously the United States and San Diego, pretty large naval presence. Norfolk, Virginia, right, on the East Coast. The coast of Florida, huge Navy shipyards and naval bases. Probably anywhere on the planet, those would be the two locations you would go to, and those are the two locations where these sightings have occurred.
Also worth noticing, the Pacific Ocean is very nearly half the planet, and there's really only one Navy of significance that tends to hang out there. The Atlantic, a lot more people play in that sea. The Pacific, that's mostly the U.S.
Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, the one and only Isaac Arthur. We are discussing the physics of a Tic Tac. All that and much more when we come back after this short break. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on jimmychurchradio.com.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to wtih.com. That's wtih.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to wtih.com. That's wtih.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to wtih.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's wtih.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from River Moon. Just click on the River Moon coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
When you're in the house for longer periods of time, you can see them flying or running across the floor. Ooh, yuck. They're unhealthy, gross, and disgusting. Bugs. I loathe bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. On contact, it kills hidden bugs, including ants, roaches, and fleas. Plus, Orange Guard is a residual repellent. All of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally recognized as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard, available at orangeguard.com, Whole Foods, and Ace Hardware.
Gold loves chaos. uncertainty, and disarray. History shows us what gold does when people aren't sure about the government, the stock market, their jobs, or their retirement savings. Our national debt is skyrocketing. Gold and other precious metals are a defense measure against inflation and a stock market that might take years to recover. So what can you do right now to protect yourself? Call United Gold Group. We offer gold and other precious metals delivered securely within 72 hours. Are you worried about the stock market? We can also help you set up a real gold or silver IRA or a 401k. Safe and secure. United Gold Group makes gold ownership affordable. Call now and get up to $2,500 in free gold or silver with a qualified IRA. Call 800-753-8534. That's 800-753-8534 or visit UnitedGoldGroup.com.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Welcome back. I'm delayed. I'm in Twitter. I'm in the chat room. Check out his YouTube channel. See, there you go, Isaac. That's what I'm doing right now. I got to get you more followers, more subscribers. Like you need it. Like you need it. Okay. Now let's change gears. And let's bump heads a little bit in the kindest, gentlest fashion. But it's this. My argument I think is very fundamental. When any of the Fermi paradoxians approach me and they bring up the great filters and all of this, I go fundamental. Which is this: you cannot prove to me that we are unique. You can't prove to me that the life out there is rare. The proof is the opposite, and that is particles only combine so many different ways. That's it. It's finite. And the magic that happens on this planet happens in an infinite sense everywhere. That's it. I have that proof. You don't. And I'm not specifically talking about you, Isaac. But life is unstoppable. We've tried to stop it on this planet many times. And it just comes bouncing back. And that's it. And it has to be that way out there throughout the universe. And that's it. There is no argument here. So the amount of life just in our Milky Way has to be extraordinary, and we're out there trying to find exoplanets. They're doing the same thing, and they know that we're here. And I don't think that is open to debate, Isaac.
Well, everything's open to debate. I would say that I would not be surprised to find alien life on Mars or on Venus even, or Titan, that had originated there, or Europa, or Ganymede or Callisto. Everyone always says Europa and overlooks the other moons all just as good. I would not be surprised if life would evolve separately on those places. I also would not be surprised if we explored every last planet in this entire galaxy and never found another single living organism. I also wouldn't be too surprised if we found life on almost every planet out there that could, and none of it ever got a brain. If it depends on if you ask the biologists, they often say there's a lot of different pathways it could go. It might be they're all covered in algae. We don't know the odds, and the problem is the numbers involved are so huge. You say, well, there are trillions of planets out there. This is true. Problem is, if the odds of life getting intelligent on a planet is 1 in a quadrillion, then your odds of finding out on a trillion planets are only 1 in 1,000.
But where do you get one in a? But where do you get 1 in a quadrillion? I would say it's 1 to 1. It's not 1 in a quadrillion. I would say that it's the exact opposite of that. And
that could be really huge. We don't know. But as an example, there's about a quadrillion stars that are close enough to us that the light from them could have reached us when the universe is old enough to produce life.
Right.
That's kind of where I get that loose one from the old Dyson dilemma concept.
Sure.
Yeah, the 1,000 or so, million or so nearest galaxies could have civilizations that a billion years ago were already big enough that we could see them as Kardashev 3 civilizations, galaxy-spanning ones, and that we'd be able to see them back here. That's usually where I get that bubble of, we haven't detected any of those with Dysonian SETI. That, at least, none of them are existing that way. Of course, they might not be visible that way for any number of reasons if they exist, but if they exist and they were visible that way, we'd see them. So they can't exist that way or follow that model, whether that's because they don't exist or they just don't follow that model, or one of our key concepts is wrong. Any of those answers could potentially be valid.
And I agree with that. And there's another part to this. We keep focusing on, because it's our knowledge base, and I get that. We only know what we know here. But we keep focusing on, we would see, and I've heard you say this many times, we would see travel between star systems. We would see evidence of that. We would see this. But wait a minute. What if their method of travel has nothing to do with a physical traveling? That there's something else in play where they are able to go from star system to star system without moving at all. And we wouldn't see space freighters, space trade.
Well, I imagine it was like one of my favorite sci-fi shows, even more in Star Trek or Star Wars, is Stargate. And on that one, you would never need a spaceship because you just go from one planet to another. Walk through the gate on the planet. And we shouldn't rule out an option like that. But then that's that multiverse example. You're talking about all the infinite numbers of possibilities. Well, if there are an infinite number of uninhabited Earths out there, or very nearly infinite, it's like 10 to the 77th, right? Which is a number so huge that you could actually do 1 followed by zeros and wrap it all the way on the planet over and over and over and over again.
I think the number is 80. I think the number is 86.
You're not going to run out of planets to colonize.
The number's 80. Isaac, the number's 86, not 77.
Is it 10 to 10 to 86? I think that was based off the Hubble value of the.
Right. I'm arguing.
Huge.
I'm arguing with the physicist. No, I was just pulling a number out of the air. But see, you bit. But the concept that I am suggesting here is that we keep thinking of the physical side of things and the speed of light and the physics as we understand it here. I get all of that.
There's something really key there, though, because you would say we is usually physicists, and you ask an astronomer for a solution, he's going to give you an astronomical one. When you ask a physicist for how the universe is based, he's going to give you a physical one. Ask a sociologist or a historian, they give a different one.
And okay. So, but their version of travel is not going to be something that we understand right now. You can think outside the box all that you want, but even that isn't enough. There has to be something that they are doing that we just clearly don't understand yet. And even if they arrived here and tried to explain it to us, we wouldn't get it. And I don't think it is a physical form of travel. I don't. Maybe
that's a possibility. And again, it might be something we weren't even looking for. If I was trying to find the future of motor travel in the 1900s, as Henry Ford said, you'd ask people what they want, they'd say a faster horse. So if I was trying to detect it, I'd be looking for, clearly a faster horse must produce more waste than a normal horse. Thus, if it was around, this road should be covered in a lot more excrement. Well, that would probably be about as valuable as that answer was, too. So, we don't know what to look for if it's not our own technology or our own physics. I only would modify that by saying we don't know how their technology works. We don't know what the answer is going to be, but we have to expand it to also say we know with the Fermi paradox or the versions of it that involve actual sightings, too. Something's missing from the equation. We're all pretty, none of the answers really fit quite correct. That might be that we're wrong about how alien technologies work and how they develop, or it might be that something more fundamental could be wrong. We shouldn't even rule out the universe might be infinitely old. It might be that it's actually 10 minutes old. We might be in a simulation. These are possible answers that are legitimate to look at. It could be that we really messed up some basic piece of our basic biology or physics. We could just be really wrong, because these are almost always based on what we know. Something we know is not right. Well, maybe something we know is wrong instead, We don't know how their technology works. Maybe the answer is simply that we've made a fundamental mistake in our science, as opposed to simply not learning something new yet, too. We can't rule those problems out, and it's the problem with trying to think outside the box is you first have to actually get out of the box to be able to do that, and you also need to make sure your tools are working, because once you get that camera outside to look at the exterior of the box, it doesn't do you any good if the camera doesn't work. Or because you just don't even have a functioning camera.
And we're trying to look at something with our technology, telescopes and things, even our own eyeballs, that are only seeing where we are in this frequency. We're looking for something that could be just completely invisible to our technology. Completely invisible.
You go to another dimension to use your travel, so we open a portal up, we stick a camera through, and we say, well, we don't see anything at all. And it turns out the reason for that is in that universe there's no photons.
Right.
They just don't exist.
That's exactly my point. Now, let's take things a little bit further. Let's suppose that the cat gets out of the bag, right? And the government says, look, E.T. is here. They have been visiting. The objects that have been seen are real. How does this change your concept into how they are getting here and why we are not seeing them?
I have to be honest, I've been on the skeptic side of this so long in terms of the physics of it. By probably my first response to them coming out and saying, no, seriously, ET's been here. We've had negotiations with this. It's a lying political trick of some kind. But, if they came out and said it and they got the evidence for it, I'd like to think that if I was presented with evidence of it, I would change my mind appropriately. But how would it change our worldview? I'm not sure it really would change it that much because, you ask most people, do you believe in aliens? These days, the polls are usually, yes, they do.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Usually it's like, well, do the skeptics believe in aliens? Mostly. Like I said, I'm on the alt-skeptic side in terms of I don't think there's any ETIs within our galaxy. Most scientists think there is. Yeah, they don't think they're visiting us right now. How would it change our worldview? Well, being presented with the reality of it in your face, they are part of your day-to-day life, that absolutely is different than having it in your head as a theoretical model, but it does give you a basis. And there's a part of me that says a week later it would be old news.
You're absolutely right with that. We've been pummeled with these ideas and theories, with Hollywood and books and eyewitness testimony, my own sightings. It's been going on for so long that if the big reveal just happened, probably 15 minutes. Yeah, you said a week. I think you're being very generous. I'm going 15 minutes. Life still goes on here. But there's. I want to go back to the technology for a second. There has been, including myself, Isaac, a lot of sightings that have appeared in the sky and then disappeared. I've seen it myself. Appeared and then disappeared. Is this travel, or is this interdimensional? Is this, a parallel world, multiverse thing that is happening where there isn't a physical entrance into our atmosphere, that it is just appearing here?
It could be any of those without knowing. And here's the other thing: it could be multiple of those too, because it turns out one of these objects is, I say, 99 examples of something being right doesn't mean 100 is also right too, and 99 false sightings doesn't mean example 100 is false either. That's a mistake folks make. Same as we'll say, well, 100 people said they saw it, so the next person knew it must be real. That's the wrong thinking. So we're saying the last 99 were disproven, so this one is wrong. Every individual sighting, every individual case is on its own merits and nothing else. And that also has to be kept in mind because they can all be completely different phenomena. One of them might be alien ambassadors from Sirius, a couple light years away, and the other could be from an alternate dimension. If the universe is huge and full of intelligent alien life, it's not like only one of them is going to come visit us.
It would be.
It'd say, well, we're space Kansas. No one cares about us. Kansas gets millions of visitors a year.
Well, right. So it wouldn't be an example of that. I mean, it would be thousands of civilizations. It wouldn't be one. And is that an example of how many different types of craft and sightings there have been? Right. We haven't seen a lot of repeated. Right, a lot of this, except for the Tic Tac, but the ET from Zeta Reticuli and ET from Andromeda would not be driving the same Ford Focus, right?
Well, right. Let's consider an option here. One of the reasons why you wouldn't have visitors who hung around would be if there was somebody else in our local area, whether that's interdimensional, local, whatever, the galaxy, whatever. That's the big dog and says, we don't want you coming to that planet. Now, just because someone says, like the Park Service, we don't want you going to that cave, doesn't mean nobody ever gets there. But it means not very many do, and nobody's making pointless repeat trips because there might be some very bad results from getting caught, as it were. And that also means the folks doing it are likely to be doing on a shoestring budget, et cetera, so they maybe don't have the best spaceships when it comes to stealth, right? Those are examples of how something like that could be realistic. The other thing is there's not a lot of motivation for a repeat visit. How many times do you go to the exact same historical site?
Right. Right.
So it's kind of like, we all use the same car, as it turns out, but the license plates all look different. If all I can see is the license plates that are visiting my area, I'm not going to see all that much repeat traffic.
And that would make a lot of sense. And there's another piece to this. Anger, violent civilizations. If those must be out there in the universe as well. But we haven't seen an alien invasion. Why do you think that is? If a civilization is advanced, have they moved on from a warring faction?
That's kind of the Sagan perspective that everybody gets a little bit more peaceful. But I've always felt that was a little bit too much hugs and kisses. Humans are the nicest species on the planet. We really are the nicest ones out there. We also are the species that crawled to the top of like a billion-year deep pile of corpses to get to where we're at now, and we're not that nice. I really don't think any aliens we're going to come across are going to be wimps. They might be very friendly and benevolent, but they're not going to be wimps, and they're probably not the nicest people in the world. If they don't like to fight, they probably are very good at it. On the flip side, we often do these analyses of what would an alien have to do, or what would an AI have to do, and they almost are always set up in a them versus us scenario where it's just them and us. Keep in mind, if the galaxy is full of life, so that one could invade us, it means there's a lot of them out there, and you never know if you're an alien, if you really were the first, if you're the biggest dog. And one thing you do know is there's a good chance there's someone who's older out there. There's a good chance that they are more powerful than you. Everything you do in space is going to be seen and recorded. And if they don't like what you're doing, which they presumably don't because they didn't do it themselves, they might do something to you. Same as we have now. It's not, the situation is never this empire versus this empire and nobody else. There's all those other people on the side, and there's all those other people internally. Usually your biggest enemy isn't your neighbor, it's the guys in the other factions of your own government or locality. So that's the kind of thing that could prevent, that's one of the reasons why we don't go around stomping all over people. Traditionally, it's not been out of too much benevolence. It's been out of preoccupation with other matters, often internal rivals, nearby neighbors, and the fear that everyone's going to jump on you if you don't act nice. That's probably the same state of play in the galaxy if there's anyone out there who will play us.
Well, and Stephen Hawking certainly was against us, flashing a flashlight and saying, we're here. You just don't want to do that. You don't know who you are speaking to and revealing yourself to.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that more in the context of they're going to know we're here because planets have biosignatures, and your forced radio waves out. Also, were pretty loud. They're like 1 million watts. We got weaker these days. We don't need to broadcast as strongly to be heard. And you could see planets. You could see them for billions of years in advance. And there are telescopes you could build that are bigger than planets of your big civilization. They can see planets. But you don't necessarily want to be shouting out there because, for all we know, the local rule might be when somebody says, "Hey, is anybody out there? Please come by." It's like a vampire. Someone knocks on your door and lets you in. We don't necessarily want to be shouting out our presence. But to be honest, I don't think it's anything we have to worry about too much because it would only really apply if the act of us shouting specifically opened the floodgate, because it's not going to be the way they find out about us. They're already going to know we're here.
Do you think that the government, specifically the Pentagon, the Department of Defense, suddenly talking openly about ET and UAPs is a marketing ploy, that they're trying to get out in front of something that is not in their control, and that is, we're being contacted right now? Do you think that is going on?
If it is, it would be kind of sloppy. I'm ex-military. I have a lot of friends who are in the Army, which I was in the Air Force. I mean, I used to work at Wright-Patterson. I've done lectures at the Air Force Academy. I'd actually be a little bit personally offended if they had this secret and they weren't telling me. But that aside, I don't really trust our ability to keep secrets like this, not as a community. I'm sure there are some very tightly kept good secrets, but they're usually boring things like individual data packets, nothing that big. People talk, soldiers talk. You could barely keep anyone's mouth shut whenever we got back from a mission, And so I just don't think they'd be able to keep that secret very long. On the other hand, if they had something they thought was definitely going to let it out of the bag and they had been keeping it quiet, yeah, it makes sense to get ahead of it for a while. But I don't think that they would because, again, there's so many other governments and they have their own spy agencies and they have so much to benefit from basically flicking us the finger and exposing us. I mean, I can't imagine China or Russia wouldn't know if we had found out about alien life. And I can't imagine they wouldn't find the best possible time to embarrass us or wreck trust the government by putting that out there. And so that, from that cynical perspective, I just don't think we'd be doing it this way. But, I mean, if they found out, or they thought it was very likely, even if it could be something like they thought that the newest level of telescopes are picking up data that would be definitely showing biosignatures, I could see them saying, well, we want to start soft-pedaling these people in advance so it's less of a shock. That's fairly speculative, at least.
In an article last year, about a year and a half ago in the New York Times, about this subject, Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal, buried in this article, down at the bottom, was this quote attributed to Dr. Eric Davis, and he says that he briefed the Senate and told them that we have crashed craft not made on this earth, that we are in possession of them. Now, that's like the biggest news in the history of the world, right? And with Dr. Eric Davis, this quote would had to have been vetted by the New York Times. They're not going to put it in print unless there was some basis to it. What do you make of Dr. Davis saying this to the Senate?
I was going to say, I don't always think of the New York Times as really all that good about vetting their information.
Whoa!
If he says to the Senate, I mean, if it was on record, I'm probably going to get crap for saying about the NYT, but if it was on record with the Senate, then it should be something you could FOIA request for and find the actual testimony of that there. If it was to some select sub-panel that's under secret guard, then I guess not, but I think they'd have put him in jail for breaking his NDA. But although that wouldn't really achieve much. I mean, if they checked that and they ran it, yes, but then they should have said that they checked that and found that in the transcript. They might just see that he had at some point in time testified in the Senate and not know what he said. I don't know. I can't speak to what the NYT's vetting process is.
Yeah, I spoke to Ralph Blumenthal on this program about that quote. And he said the editors at the New York Times did their due diligence to confirm that quote and also and to vet it, and that they didn't put it at the top of the article because then the article would have had to have been about that quote. And that's why they put it at the bottom of the article. And that was from Ralph Blumenthal directly on this program. Now, one last thing, and I want to thank you. Great conversation tonight. But
always glad to be on.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I enjoy it every single time. We talked about Rendezvous with Rama earlier, and I think also about the movie Contact. Is it possible that we are observing something that is approaching our solar system and won't be here for a couple of years, but this is an opportunity to get the planet warmed up for the big news?
I mean, it's always on the possible radar, all of these things, but I would just think that we'd have heard of that from our own observatories. Those are the biggest, best telescopes we have, had their data go directly through a lot of open source things where it's easily available to people who aren't government officials or military. If it is, it's a good approach, but I'd still say it just depends on whoever's running the administration. Some of them would say, well, you do it subtly. Others might say the best, honest thing to do is just tell people on day one. But I think you have to tell other governments, wouldn't you? If there was something coming, you want to let the other governments know, at least the big ones, because you're going to need their involvement in this at some point. And, I mean, they might be better at keeping secrets than us, but you think at least one would have leaked all over the place.
If something was approaching our solar system, at nearly the speed of light, and it was some large physical craft, how long would it take to slow down? Right? It can't just fly. It just can't cruise into our solar system at the speed of light and then pump the brakes.
I was about to say, if it's doing 1G, it takes about a year to slow down from light speed at 1G, which is what we would want on board. But if we're talking about a spaceship that can do, say, 5,000G, like we think the Tic Tac might have in the more extreme models for that, then cut that time down by 1/5,000th, which would be, I'm sorry, that would be about an hour, 2 hours. It's about an hour or two.
No, really?
Again, please don't quote me on that exact number, but it should be about a year divided by 5,000. I think that's about an hour or two. At 5,000 Gs.
It's so funny. I got to watch Isaac do math in his head, and that was pretty interesting to have you pull that off. I wouldn't have done it. Isaac, thank you so much. You're putting out a new episode per week, right?
Yeah, and an extra one, Sci-Fi Sundays, that we do once a month that just tries to focus on the stuff that's we see more in sci-fi and what its physical basis might be if the science permitted it.
And what did you cover this week?
Tomorrow we have an episode coming out actually about 8 hours. That's going to be on the future of farming. The week before that, wow, I can't believe I've forgotten this already. We looked at the option of a future without money, and then we did, standing out in a civilization of trillions. What would it be like if you actually lived in one of these gigantic galactic empires and you just didn't want to be one little cog in the giant machine?
You're the best. Isaac, thank you so much, my friend. And I can't wait till we have our next conversation. Thank you so much.
Anytime, Jimmy. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're the best. Isaac Arthur. And it's all simple. It's isaacarthur.net. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Science and Futurism with Isaac Arthur right there on YouTube. And now you know officially where I get my best stuff. Thank you so much, Arthur. Enjoy the rest of your night, my friend. Thank you.
You too.
Isaac Arthur. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B blend for 15% off of your order today.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way.
This is KJCR at jimmychurchradio.com.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. I want to thank Isaac Arthur for coming in tonight, and the physics of a Tic Tac. One of the most, it's like this polarizing subject, and I get it. I understand why. So many reasons. Anyway, I've opened up the phone lines 747-228-2051. 747-228-2051. So much to unpack in that conversation, and this is what I enjoy about Isaac. He has, and once you go to Science and Futurism with Isaac Arthur, go to his YouTube channel and start poking through, and it's years of stuff that is there, but go and check it out. He presents some of the most compelling theories and ideas about extraterrestrial civilizations, their technology, how they would get it done. In so many, it is so wide, and he lays it all out there from the mindset of him being a skeptic, and not a skeptic hardcore, because he's got an open mind, and you cannot present, like he has done over the years, some of the greatest research into ET and their technology. He's got the openness, most open of open minds out there, and I think that came through tonight on the show when we're discussing the physics of the Tic Tac. And I can present every single angle to him and he's going to break it down. And I totally appreciate the way that he has approached all of this. And then once you go through the physics of the Tic Tac part of it, from a scientific mind like Isaac, what are we left with? Well, it's got to be ET. Not got to be, but I mean, that's the other option that is on the table. And for him to then present all of the angles of why it could be ET and ET is here, that's one of the best things that we could have on this show. He's laid it out. And although he doesn't necessarily believe that it's ET, what else could it be? The points that he made tonight, could it be Russian? Could it be Chinese? And them having this technology out in front of one of the points that he made, which wasn't discussed by the UAP task force, that hasn't been mentioned by anybody on the internet or any of the other supporters of this and the Tic Tac. He said this: if you are in possession, if you're Russia and you're in possession of this technology, that's a waste. What you would be doing with that technology is free energy inside of your country to have factories, to produce food, to have energy, and to make you the most powerful country on earth. That's what you would do with the technology, and we would know it. You wouldn't be able to hide it. Well, that would apply to China, right? Well, that would also apply to the United States, which, again, swings all of this in the other direction. It's probably not from here. If we take everything in its totality, that's the eyewitness testimony, that's the radar, and that is the physics of what is involved here. Us having anti-gravitic technology inside of the United States that is backwards engineered, all of it's a possibility, and he agrees with that. But we would certainly see evidence outside of the military with this technology, and that's it. Because that would indeed absolutely make us the most powerful country in the world. That's it. That is it. It's pretty interesting, isn't it? You got to look at it from those terms. That's why we have Isaac Arthur on this show. I've opened up the phone line, 747-228-2051. Let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? You're live. You're live. Oh man, are we gonna do this? 3, 2, you're live. I can hear you. I can hear you. All right, I'm gonna put you on hold. I'll come back to you. Let's see. Oh. Best show ever. Exclamation point. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? You're live. Oh, man, don't tell me I got problems with the phones. Oh, man. Okay. Oh, please don't tell me I've got problems with my phones. Okay. Man, I'll just sign off of the show right now. I'm not going to do this for the next 20 minutes live on the air. I'll just wind this thing down right now. We've got Fader night tomorrow night, and we can just go to open lines tomorrow night. I'm going to do one more crack at this. 747-228-2051. One more crack, and let's see. But if I've got issues with, no, I don't see anything going wrong. Okay, so unfocus out of the phones. It doesn't matter. We'll check it out in a second. But going back to some of the points here, the thing is, not only is there a lot of life out there? But the non-repetitive nature, sort of what has been seen here on this planet, of sightings and things, non-repetitive. It's not like we are seeing the exact same thing over and over again. Now, contact with intelligent life, right? The Greys and the Nordics and reptilians and mantids and things. Yeah, that tends to repeat, right? Okay, I get that. But I'm talking about the types of vehicles and how it's seen. That, right back to Isaac's point, there's got to be a lot of life out there. And if there is, it's not just one civilization visiting this planet. It's thousands. And would they do a repeat visit here? That's such a great point that Isaac brought up. And I've said it the same thing. Would you come by and check it out and move on and get to the next planet, get to the next star system and check it out? Well, you would be doing that forever. You would be doing that forever. And that's what we would be doing if we had the ability to go from planet to planet to planet. Are we going to stop at one planet and stay there for 100 years? And hang? Well, it's possible, but we would also map it, lock it down, record it, and then move on to the next planet and check it out for signs of life and what's going on, and rinse and repeat and do that over and over again. That's what we would do, and I would think that ET would be doing the exact same thing. Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, Jimmy, it's Chuckles from Pennsylvania, man.
Hey, how are you, Chuck?
I'm good. I'm surprised I got through so quickly, but I just had a thought with a thought that I've always had. So anyway, really always appreciate Isaac being on the show. And right towards the end, you were mentioning how hopefully they've grown past being, I don't know, violent or mean. And that's kind of how I've always thought. But you brought up a point that kind of maybe answers that question that I'll bounce off of you in the faders. We have so many sightings of so many different crafts. I think you're in my ballpark where these crafts are coming from all kinds of different places. Are we both maybe kind of on the same page there?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so all right. So if we got craft coming from all over the place, and they're not even shooting at themselves in the sky, let alone us, I think we're okay. If we had a whole bunch of animals together here on Earth, unfortunately, the most dominant animal would start to fight and then rule. That's just what we witness here. Well, we're witnessing all kinds of different kinds of craft coming and going. We don't even need to talk about that because we're all here listening to you talking because we all believe. Well, we're not seeing them shoot at one another, and they're not shooting at us. I just kind of had that feeling, just kind of wanted to bounce it off you and the faders. I'll hang up and let you all chat about it.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Chuck. That's actually a really, 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 really good point. I have seen things in the sky. I have. Have I seen anything with laser cannons and shooting at each other or shooting, at us? I haven't seen anything like that. I've seen a couple of crazy videos over the years that show something fighting up there at high altitudes. It looks like some dog fighting occurring. That could be us. That could be our own satellites. That could be Russia against China. It could be Russia against the United States, and we're up there shooting at each other. That's a total possibility. But that being said, I don't think there's been any clear evidence of a violent takeover. One of the other points, before I get back to the phone calls, Isaac said one thing a few years ago on the show. We didn't talk about it tonight, but But he said something very, very interesting. If they wanted to have this planet, they wouldn't have a shootout. They could do anything that they wanted that would make things pretty simple, right? A virus, just wipe us out in seconds, the entire planet. Before they got here, we wouldn't even see them here, right? There's that. And then he said something else very interesting. He said, no, why would you just come here and risk the lives of your own crew members in a war with planet Earth? What you could do is cruise in to our solar system at the speed of light, point the ship at Earth, and hit the brakes and release all of your garbage. Right? And kinetically, their garbage hits Earth at the speed of light. That's it. I mean, it doesn't have to be a plasma cannon war, a laser cannon war. It doesn't have to be that. There are much easier, more efficient ways to get rid of us, and we're still here. So I think it's pretty safe to say that who has visited us so far hasn't been evil, right? I don't feel it. I don't see it. And that's it. And one of the things that we do here is we shoot first and ask questions later. That's what we do. It doesn't matter. It goes back to Stone Age man. We've always been that way. We're not shooting at these craft, right? We're simply not doing that. To say that we're not shooting missiles, Dave Fravor didn't have armed missiles on his F-18. Yeah, but they've got all kinds of Gatling guns and missiles on the Nimitz, and all of those guided missile cruisers and those Aegis cruisers that are armed to the teeth. Did you hear that? Wow. I heard that. I haven't. Wow, that was crazy. Anyway, we haven't fired anything. Think about that. Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
What's up, Jim?
What's up? Who's this?
Tenacious, Malibu Mike, whatever you want to call me. That's all good.
Tenacious, Malibu Mike. Okay, got it.
F1 on many shows for many years. I've been into this since I was a kid and had abductions, just led into the subject and kept over and over and over collecting information and videos. And, sometimes I'm going to ask you to just take a step back and try to absorb what I'm saying and get it. Sometimes you have to step back and just say certain things hit you and it makes so much sense, and it's the simplest of thoughts. And I want to just share this with you and get your opinion on it. It's like, if it was not ours, but theirs, wouldn't they just send all types of crafts into our vision? I mean, who's going to send a single scout here and there? Wouldn't it just be a whole fleet? If they're going to show up, aren't they just going to come and say, hey, here we are? And I mean, do you understand where I'm going? Maybe you could help me out with my thought here, Jim, but it's like, I was just thinking the other night, my God, enough of the one neighbor that's playing hide and go seek. Wouldn't the whole neighborhood come out and just say, hey, here we are?
Okay, anything is possible. So you can't say no to that. You can't say yes to that. I don't think that there's enough data there to support either side. But anything is possible.
We don't have the ability to catch up with their ships. We don't have the ability to do much of any type of resistance. I mean, so what's really stopping our star brothers and sisters for just coming up and really just going, okay, now what? You know what I mean?
Yes. Okay. But it's really this simple. And just hear me out. Just stay with me on this. There is intelligent life on this planet all over the place that isn't human. That knows what's going on. But that doesn't mean that one of the most intelligent animals on this planet is the raven. But how does that mean that we're going to teach the ravens how to build their own internet? But hold on, Mike, hear me out.
I'm with you.
Okay, just stay with me. An advanced civilization that can get here, we can't get there, but that has the technical ability to figure out how to get across these vast distances. Our Milky Way, just our Milky Way, is 150,000 light years across. 150,000 light years. Frigging Andromeda, right? Andromeda. Do you know how far away Andromeda is? It's a long ways. Now, okay, so anything that can travel and figure out a way to get from point A to point B, not only in this Milky Way, but across the universe, when they get here, who are we to them? Who are we to them? And how would it be possible to even have a grip of communication and understanding each other? I'm not talking about us communicating with ants. I'm talking about us communicating with chimpanzees and apes and ravens. Very, very smart creatures. An octopus, a dolphin, right? We can't. And we live together on this planet. So to think that, they would come here and just hang out and just show us things, we can't even do that here on our own planet with the own species that live among us. And we got to think way outside of the box here and try to understand this. Why aren't they here helping us cure cancer? We're not showing ravens how to do open heart surgery. We're not doing that. And that's I don't think that there's another way to look at it, Mike. I really don't.
I got so much input, Jim, and I'm going to try to streamline it, okay? I know we have jump rooms. I know what CRTs are when there are moments where their crafts can go through holes and reach us. I do. Okay, here, let me throw something wild at you, and I'm sure this will get a lot of responses. So I learned a long time ago from following my own experiences where my thoughts and dreams were coming from. And I just happened to be in a place in Huntington Beach, and a guy recognized me and I recognized him, and we had a talk, and we ended up going to the house and talking. And I said, so are you part of the 20 and back program? Because I think I recognize you from one of the groups of people I was with. He, over a period of 2 months, communicated with me, and we met, that he said he was part of the 20 and back program. I asked very explicit questions that only someone part of that program would know. Like I'm saying, okay, where were you? What were you doing? He was on a cargo vessel. They would go into Diego Garcia. They would trade with aliens. They were on different planets, such as Ceres. They would trade with aliens. And I said, how do you live? If you're not supposed to be recognized, how do you live? I mean, how do you get your food? How do you pay for your bills? And he said, well, I'm on a credit system. All I do is go places and I charge credits, and it's covered. I am a firm belief I was in the service where I was a crypto, where I was stationed at Diego Garcia, and I did happen to see some really weird things going on at 2 and 3 in the morning when we were supposed to be locked down in our barracks, but I wasn't always paying attention to the regulations. And I did see things coming in to the bay there at Diego Garcia that were as huge as a football stadium.
Well, but Mike, and I've got to run in about 2 minutes. Then what you are saying,
to be open to what I'm saying, because you know what, brother, I've never lied to you, and I never will.
Yeah, Mike. But what you just said was not the opposite, but it was contradicting what you had said at the beginning of the phone call, which is why aren't they here in groups? Well, apparently they are. If we're doing interstellar trade out of Diego Garcia,
visibly in groups.
Well, they're doing it. You just said how big was the craft at Diego Garcia?
Well, I when I saw it, the only way I could compare it, Jim, was it would have fit over the Coliseum.
Right. So they are doing what you're saying.
Well, but it's not being, obviously we're being disinformed.
Well, that part's true. I mean, I've got a friend of mine who I trust and respect a lot, and he doesn't want to come on the show and talk about it, but I've talked about this with him over the years. And he was in downtown L.A. He was in downtown L.A. working with a friend. He looks up in the sky, he sees some static, and then he looks again, and a ship was flying through the clouds to the west that looked like an aircraft carrier tipped upside down. And he said it was a mile long up there. And now this is a friend of mine. And he's a bit of a, I don't want to give too much away here, a bit of a celebrity and in that world, so he doesn't want to be public with this, but
jeopardize his future.
But he's shared this with me, and I've talked to him about this experience for hours in great detail. So you're not the only one to suggest this and to say these things. And this is somebody that absolutely does not want to go public, doesn't want to do anything. But he shared this experience with me. Mike, with that, I got to get off the air, man. I got to run credits.
I'll say one more thing real quick.
You got 15.
What I'm saying is real.
15 seconds.
When I was on the USS Robeson in 1978, I watched a craft come out of the water when we were on the way to New Zealand. It glowed green behind our ship. It came up. I saw structures in the windows. I reported it to my commanding officer, and I got kicked out of the service for reporting that. And 3 other people saw it.
Mike, have a great night, and thank you for sharing that with us, my friend. I got to roll credits and get out of here. Have a great night, Mike. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jim.
This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What a great night. Isaac Arthur bringing his A game. Absolutely incredible conversation tonight. Fade to Black is produced by Hill J. Palmer, Renee Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2021 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tomorrow night, right here, Fader Night. Open lines all night long. Until then, I want everybody to be safe. It's time to fade to black.